Dope. Okay, we are live. Yes.
Howdy,
Hello.
humanity.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Dumplings. Lord Dumplings. I mean, we're just dumplings. Me and Iskra, we're just dumplings.
Look at these
look
cheeks.
look at them. Look at these dumplings. Yeah, we're definitely dumplings. Um, but yeah, where we talk about doing a little of the, you know, the background stuff for our game of Santos that we have going on.
Yes, in the run-up to the 100th session, which is exciting.
Yeah, this is bananas. Like I was just thinking about this earlier today and having a conversation with somebody about like how time flies and like where we started 100 sessions ago and where we're at now, and how I never in a million years would have thought that we would be doing the things that we are doing right now, or going through the things that we're going through right now.
Like in terms of what's actually going on in
Yeah.
the campaign itself.
Well, yes. I mean that mostly that. And then I was like thinking about it. Well, also just in the scope of like where we're at is in humanity in general, but mostly.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
No,
I never would have imagined that we would have wound up like on streaming online on Twitch was such a weird note. Like Twitch was a whole enigma for me at the time. Anyway, I didn't really know what the heck it even was. And then now,
yeah. When did you start playing?
when did I start playing D&D?
Well, for this particular campaign.
Oh,
and
this
then,
particular campaign? No, well that was it. Like I started playing Dungeons and Dragons while starting this campaign, while learning how to play, while learning how to DM, all at the same time. And that was we're gonna say it's October of 2018.
Yeah, I think I remember talking to you about that just a little bit when that was when you were first starting up, which was really groovy.
It's insane, just insane that I was like, because it was me, my friend Sean and David and Adam and Ryan and a couple others that we would play PlayStation together. We'd play on PSN, and we'd play like Warframe or whatever little games that we could get our hands on, that where we could all play together. And so we started Knights of Silvermoon as a like a gamer guild, a gamer group thing, I guess. And so then we were like, oh well, we'd been doing that for probably a couple months, and we were running out of steam of like things to play that we could play together that we hadn't already played for forever. And so
Boredom was setting in.
Yeah. So I was like, well, and we liked getting together for game nights. So we would play a lot of Jackbox and things. So we're like, oh, let's try this Dungeons and Dragons thing. I had promised a friend that I would give it a shot one day. And so
Hey, well, right on.
yeah. And so, we were like, okay, so let's give it a shot and see where it goes. And everyone's like, yeah, well, everyone had that curiosity, I guess. They're like, oh yeah, I know, I've heard about that. I don't know what that's all about.
Everyone's dungeon curious.
Yeah. Yes, everyone just had that little subliminal curiosity before we got into the dice itch. Now we're just like, yeah, give me.
For real though, oh my gosh, like D&D is super addictive. Pencil paper roleplay games in general, like especially if you have a group that you enjoy playing with.
I had
like,
no idea. Yeah. Okay, so then I'm gonna ask you back this question. It's when did you start playing?
Okay, yes. Oh well, so I started playing in high school, so it was probably like 2005, 2006,
Oh, yesterday.
maybe. Yeah. Just the other day, I just
the other
found
day.
some books lying in the street, and I was like, what's this about?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could pick it up because of the pandemic, something
Right.
I can telework with.
Right.
Um,
So you started
yeah,
in high school, huh?
Yep. Started in high school in little tiny mountain town in Colorado, as you know.
Yeah.
But there was a group there that played. My friends and the high school was really small, so like
Yeah.
I was gonna keep hanging out. I'd play D&D. I was already a huge nerd,
Yeah.
and I'd heard about it in middle school when I lived somewhere else,
Yeah.
um, and was like intrigued, but I'd never played. And so then the opportunity was presented. It was D&D 3.0, I think, was what we started with, and then 3.5 came out. I did some of that, and then like played around with other systems as well while I was there. But
Yes. So then with so far with the additions you've played, do you have a favorite?
ooh, so that's tough.
Yeah,
I
I've
think
heard that exact reaction to that.
I think that 3.0 had a lot of possibilities, but the rules there were so many that it was easy to either forget what the heck a rule was,
Yeah.
or things could just go haywire. Like you
Real
could come
quick.
up with these crazy combinations that were game breaking pretty easily.
Yeah.
Um, when 3.5 came out, that was really good, and then 4E was about to hit, and there were a lot of people who were like old school who were disgruntled about 4E because the idea with fourth edition was to be like, well, we're gonna make it kind of more like an MMO with the way that the rule set goes,
Okay.
a little easier for new players. And a lot of people were like, that's terrible, you're dumbing it down.
Yeah.
Why are you stripping all these great rules and like classes and everything that we had? Forget you. And that's how Paizo ended up making Pathfinder.
Oh, see, and so that's why Pathfinder is so similar then.
And so Pathfinder is basically like 3.75. Like it's almost like those rules were the foundation
Mm-hmm.
for Pathfinder.
Mm.
So it was a bunch of people who loved D&D
Yeah.
and didn't want to stop playing 3.5
Yeah,
or
but they
having support for those books,
Right.
They wanted new content to still come out. So that was like a refinement of that system. So I actually have the most experience with Pathfinder, and I think that's my favorite right now.
Okay.
5e I enjoy. I think that Wizards of the Coast was smart with
Mhm.
what they did, because people were upset initially, being like, we want to make it easier for new players. Ultimately, I think it was an intelligent choice now, though, because look how huge the hobby is now.
Right.
Like it used to be a thing that was like, this is the nerd of nerds thing.
Right.
Like if you're a gamer but you play video games, you still don't want to
There was
hang out
like
with the D&D kids.
there was a barrier
Like,
there.
exactly.
No, this is
Um,
exactly true because that was my experience when I was working at GameStop. Like the kid that wanted me to play, I was like, I literally told him, I don't know if I can cross that. I'm like, I like games, but I don't know if I
Yeah, it's like,
qualify.
I
used
don't know
to
if
just,
I'm
I don't know if
that
I'm,
kind of
yeah,
gamer.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I can qualify for that. Cause like, I was like, cause I literally said, I don't know anything about Magic the Gathering or anything. He was like, wait, what? I was like, well, just that realm of like game space. I don't know anything about it. So, that was the big daunting. Plus I hate math.
Well, like those stereotypes that existed, like one that, yeah, there's a lot of math involved, and there is. But calculators are a thing now, so that barrier to accessibility
Right.
is lessened.
You're right.
Um,
And,
and
how many
then
apps
like,
roll for us and
oh my
calculate
gosh,
for us?
so many. I have to say though, like the physical dice,
Oh, yeah.
still my favorite.
For sure.
Compared to like all the digital options, they're nice to have, but there's nothing like actually hearing and feeling that like roll and seeing those numbers. So.
But yes.
Which
anyway.
so dice collection, what have you got going on in terms of that?
So I honestly, I'm doing okay.
Are you a dice hoarder?
No. Well, no. that didn't sound very convincing. But no, I don't think I'm quite the dice hoarder. I definitely have some dice. I have my first set of dice came with a starter set. So that's the first one that I had. But then I wound up buying one of those like Amazon packs that has like I think it was six different colors. It was like with their own little felt bag for each one, and so that was kind of our group's dice like hoard. And so I bought that for everybody so that whenever they come over, they had dice if they didn't
Oh, well,
have
that's
their
groovy.
own. That way it was one less daunting thing because I felt like for some people when they were learning they were just like, well, but I don't know about what to buy for dice, and I was like, I don't know either, so I just bought it off of Amazon and to hell with it. So
I see. That's a good thing that GMs do, though, is they have supplies available for the
yeah,
players.
just like a
so.
teacher, here's your pencils, children, or
Yes.
whatever. So I had the dice, and so eventually, the more that the crew played, the more they then started kind of getting their own thing. They were like, oh, I'm going to get one that kind of fits more my personality or the aesthetic of my character. And so
Totally.
so then they kind of wound up getting their own. And so I have the bags still. So I technically have those. And then occasionally I would go and I would buy some. I got some extras from a local store called Night's Watch Games that I went and got some. They have like a giant bowl of dice, and I would just pick out the ones that I liked because I was like, well,
Groovy.
for the most part, you wind up using a lot of D6s for things or D8s. I got a couple extra D4s. I think I mostly just got D6s, D8s, and a couple extra 20s. But other than that, I have 1, 2 distinguishable. I have 3 or 4 sets, I guess, that I keep.
Like I used to play clerics all the time, so I had lots and lots of D8s because like everything, all of your like curing spells, or if you're like fighting undead or whatever,
right?
Like even a lot of your weapons were D8s.
We're all D8 stuff.
So
I mean, I wish I used more D8s. They're so nifty.
They are pretty cool, little diamond shape.
Yeah, I mean they're compared to like the D4s, which always make me nervous when I throw them because I want to make sure that I know where they go.
You're right.
Times.
You're like throwing down jacks for yourself.
Yeah, the caltrops.
Yes, caltrops.
Caltrops. Those things. Yeah, I was like, Legos who? Have you ever stepped on a D4 or a bunch of D4s? No, thank you.
But I'm so glad though that like D&D is a thing, and pencil and paper games are a thing that like more people are doing now, because it's such a great, like, you're hanging out together with friends, you're using your imagination, there's a lot of like shared storytelling and creativity. Like if you're gonna want to like harken back to like the oral tradition of like ancient humanity, right? Like it kind of feels like it's in that same sort of vein. Like sitting around a campfire and telling stories.
It was it was so weird. Well, I mean, I was not expecting it. I had heard how much fun it was and that it was like very addicting. And I was like, I can kind of see how, because humans basically love drama. So to be part of their own drama, without the immediate real life consequences, being able to do whatever you want to do, it was kind of a cool concept. But then actually playing it out and then seeing how like characters would interact with each other, or like, and by character, like the players would interact with each other, and it was just like, this is surreal, And then I was watching on earlier today when I was watching Blackwater D&D, like one of their characters had been asked before their stream about why they enjoy D&D so much, and he was like talking about how it's like cathartic even to kind of talk about or release certain emotions that you are dealing with that you may not even realize you're dealing with, but they comes out in the character.
Totally.
And then you're like, why am I getting so worked up about this thing? It's not even real. And then you're like, oh wait, you go and reflect on it and you think back, oh wait, this is totally ties back to whatever and whatever. And we had several moments like that with our group. Not like right away, because I think it helps too whenever everybody kind of is comfortable with everybody else. Like those kind of moments coming out once everyone kind of settles in. But I would say probably a couple months in, and we had a few moments where um, me as playing an NPC, like I was getting talked to by one of the characters, and it just hit in a certain way that I was just like, wow, this is like they're talking to me, but they're not talking to me, but at the same time, like they're talking to me. And so it was just like, oh wow, this is wild. And so we did it for a couple of months before we missed our first session. I think it was like around the holidays when we were just like the scheduling was kind of off. And so the next week, or even I think it was like a couple of days later, I had gotten a couple of text messages of I can't wait for next week. I'm kind of missing my therapy session,
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, I was like, wow, this is so wild that they feel like that. And it made me really happy because I was like, okay, so I know we're doing something right,
Oh,
We got
absolutely.
We got that vibe going, that feeling going.
It's scheduling though. Oh my gosh, the death of many a D&D campaign has been, trying to make sure everyone can still meet up.
We got super lucky. We have been super lucky. I mean, clearly we're approaching our 100th thing, so that's pretty dope.
For sure.
But,
for sure.
Yeah, no, we got super lucky with our crew. And at first I thought, I was like, I had heard stories about how many games don't get too far off the ground because of scheduling issues. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we have hardly missed anything. In 6 months, I think, in our first 6 months, I think we missed 2 games. And then after that, I think in total, we probably missed 7 in the 100 episodes. So we probably missed like 7
really
to 10, somewhere in there, because most of them involved like either someone was sick or we were just like during the holidays. So the 2 holiday seasons, and that was kind of the Thanksgiving and Christmas were the
Which
times.
That makes sense.
Yeah, everybody was kind of all over the place. But for the most part, we were pretty good about just like either rescheduling for later in the week if we needed to or whatever, because nobody wanted to miss, for too long. But yeah, we got lucky with that. And
Yeah,
still so far so good.
Yeah, I know. We'll see if it keeps up.
Right?
Thanks to modern technology, I think that it's probably easier.
Oh
now,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Because like I was like in Utah and still being able to be in the game, or like Aliquin has been around the country also.
And that was when we
still
first
participating.
Yeah, and that was when we first started talking about playing online and streaming. Was he had to go to the East Coast for a little while, a couple years ago, or a year ago, I guess now. And we were like, okay, well, whenever he goes, should we set up a camera for him? Just have like, hey, because we were still hanging out at the apartment, so I was like, we could put him on my laptop or on someone's iPad or something, and have him like sit there. But then it was just like, well, yeah, but then we had to have like a really weird like conference system of like, how do you move the camera to talk to each person, and you know what I mean? You have to like set
how
it
do you
up.
do telepresence that way?
Exactly. I was like, if we only had the Star Wars holoprojectors, that apparently you can see everything while apparently seeing nothing at the same time.
Or like in Demolition Man, there's like that room with the little like swivel TVs around the conference table.
Yeah.
That just like automatically track.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, sure. How hard could it be to find that, But yeah, so we thought about it, and then we were like, and then I think that's when Marcus Kindred was like, hey, what if we started streaming? And I was like, listen, that would involve even more cameras set up like for everybody with their own microphones. Like, we'll calm down. Let's get past the point where we're having to look up rules first, and or as much. We still have to look up rules, but we don't have to reference books as much as we used to. Because at the beginning, like, I felt like half of our session was like, I mean, I don't know. Let's look it up. What does this do?
Oh, absolutely. So much.
But we all learned together. I think our only player that had played anything really our tabletop wise was David, who played Pigug, and he had played Warhammer, and I think he had played maybe one of the previous versions of D&D, but he had just been playing a Warhammer campaign, and so
Oh,
he
cool.
kind of knew. I mean, he was at least familiar with the concepts of playing, so he kind of helped us out a lot in the learning process because we were kind of really lost.
Well, that's good that you've had someone that knows a little bit of the swing of things and can, like, well, you're gonna have to like go to the appendix and look for that
Right.
word so that you can
Exactly.
find out where in the rulebook it is.
Oof.
Um,
But yeah, no, we had a good start.
but yeah, so I mean, I guess we've talked kind of around the world for a minute. So because we're coming up on the 100th episode, right? Well, we're gonna be eventually talking to the other characters and really like diving into the lore of
Character
the
by-
campaign.
Yeah.
So
Whale.
we wanna start talking about the world.
The
Wanna start
world?
talking about the Forgotten Realms
Forgotten
or
Realms.
Faerun and like why yours is different or
Okay.
you know.
So, like, I was looking this up and trying to try and figure out how best to describe this because I didn't want. For one, I was a newbie DM, so I wasn't going to try and tackle creating a whole new world on my own because I had no idea what I was doing. As far as that goes, we started the game using Mines of Fendelver, the Lost Mines, I think is what it's called, the Lost Mines of Fendelver, and that was the small starter campaign that comes with the starter set.
Okay, cool.
And so it takes place in around 14, I think it's 1498 or no, not 98, 1489, sorry, I dyslexified it, somewhere in that realm. And so it takes place like within the Dungeons and Dragons timeline in a general space, right? So it starts the characters out on the Sword Coast, which Faerun, if you think about it, like size-wise, kind of almost like the shape of America. They're basically in California, right? So they're on like the California coast, and that's called the Sword Coast. And there's a group of city-states that rule that area called the Lord's Alliance, and they had been in a alliance for almost over 100 years. It's like 100 plus years. They're almost 200, I think, actually. Hold on, I wrote it down. Yeah, almost 200 years. So they've been around for a while, and it's just like the big main cities, which you've seen in various D&D games. Neverwinter, obviously, is one, and that has like Neverwinter Nights is one of the games.
Absolutely.
Then you have like further down the coast, you have Baldur's Gate. That's another one that's in a lot of the games that are out there. A lot of the video games that are out there are Baldur's Gate based. But there's a bunch. There's like I want to say that there were 12 cities in total that were part of this like Lord's Alliance. So the start of the campaign saw the characters taking on a quest leading out from Neverwinter and going to this small little mining town. They were basically playing escort, and then they just get dragged and embroiled into this, conspiracy of this lost mine that apparently had a forge that would make that had some sort of magical. It was like a magic forge that would make magic items, kind of, or at least that's what the legend said.
Okay,
and so
cool.
the lost mine had been lost for a while, but then was recently found by a couple of dwarven brothers, and the party gets hired by them to like escort one of the guys and some supplies to this mining operation. So they get to the town, and there's like an ambush on the way that kind of is the first taste of combat for players. There's an ambush that's along the way, and then they get to the town, and there was some bandits that had taken over the town as security, but they were working for a wizard that was looking for this mine, and so it just kind of takes them around the area, and they get involved in a bunch of local shenanigans. But that's where they got started. And then once we finished that campaign and they were about to leave was when I was like, okay, I need to make a decision. I was still like, I thought, no, I could either go and read I could go and read whole nother source book or material, and try and do a campaign that was already pre-printed, or as I had been reading, you can use the characters' backstories to kind of fuel the story, and that's kind of where I decided to go with based on Forgotten Realms. So I had a backbone, but this is definitely, if you're familiar with like DC Comics or Marvel does it too, where there's like multiple Earths through multiple dimensions, and each one has like slight variances. That seem to be the best suggested route for DMs. Is like that way you'll have something to reference to, but at the same time you can make it your own. So we went with that, and so we have a slightly.
I think that's really groovy.
Yeah, we have a slightly, different take on the timeline, but it's mostly all still there. So if the players wanted, they could kind of go back and look at, other resources and find things that were familiar. But then they usually would always ask me like, hey, is this still true? And I'm like, yes or no.
Yeah, because even if, if it gets to the point where things have diverged
right.
in your setting, there's still like flavor stuff that could be relevant to those environments or people or nations or whatever. So.
Exactly. So
I have to ask you something.
Okay. No, go for it.
How did that first combat go?
Well,
because I've seen some very funny first combat situations that have occurred.
I'm just gonna sip my tea. And I'm gonna say it was ridiculously entertaining, just for the pure fact that nobody knew what they were doing, but everybody knew what they were doing. So they thought, they had like this preconceived notion. I'm going to go and do this. I think Wednesday, we're going to have most of the people that were there for that first, that first one.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll go back to that. Yes, because there were some definite entertainment moments, which, by the way, because I didn't know what I was doing as a DM or didn't know what it was going to be like, I had too many people at the time to have one party, so I split them into parties of 4 and 4.
Oh my gosh, as a starter DM,
I was like,
already having people like in 2 different places.
Yeah, so I was like, I can do 2 games using the same material. I mean, I'm like, there'll only be slight variations for each. I'll keep notes for both. Like, how hard could it possibly be? And so I ran the game for both groups, and I think after like 3 sessions, I think we got like 2 or 3 sessions in for both of them, and we wound up dissolving one because that one was already starting to do the Tumblr spin of death of just like people were falling out and being like, oh, I can't go today, or whatever. And so it's like, okay. So from that one group that
very true, Parrish.
Wow. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yeah. So yeah, first time playing D&D is a lot like your first
Hopefully
time having
usually
sex.
Nobody dies though.
Everyone is nervous. True.
Like...
Well, and we were lucky. Nobody died. But with the group that wound up falling apart, I will go on that one because the only one that I think stayed with us was Kindred. He was in that first group, and then he wound up moving over to the other one. So he wound up joining later after the players had finished the first like little mini dungeon cave that they had gone into.
Oh, well, that's groovy.
So they just found him along the way, kind of thing. But with that first group, we had someone who was playing sorcerer, the wild magic sorcerer, and like first shot right out of the gate, super excited. He was like first one to go on initiative, and then he rolled a natural one on his first spell. And with wild magic sorcerers, they roll on a table for random events to occur, and he made a giant fog cloud that like didn't sound as terrible at the beginning, because it's like, oh, a 20-foot, radius thing. But then we looked at the map and saw like it covered most of the entire battlefield. So everybody was like, well, hell, like everybody's blind now. What are we gonna do? So yeah, it was one of those, and we had a moment. I will tell you this: ask Galil, ask Adam, how his first combat experience went in our game, and then we'll.
I definitely shall.
Yes, because it was great. But yeah, so I kind of just distracted myself, but yeah, so that's where we started, and we're now in Faerun, and Faerun is like this large country that somehow has all of these different biomes on it, but that's the world of Magic, is mysterious like that. So the west coast is where the Lord's Alliance is, and then far to the east there is a more deserty area in which is controlled by the realm of Thay, Thay, and they are the current antagonists of our campaign.
They are the current antagonists.
Parrish has a question for the DM. What has been your favorite player moment so far? Oh,
there's got to be so many. 100 sessions. Almost, nearly.
Like favorite. Yeah, that is hard, because I've had a lot of really good ones where I'm just like, this is amazing. This is D&D, and then I kick somebody into a well. But no. But like, I think one of the memorable moments that I won't forget, just because it like touched me a lot, not in a weird way, but it touched me, was just I was playing the NPC Carp, who currently is known as Afriel. He's kind of has been a circular point in the campaign like storyline, which we'll get to that later. But I was playing him, and at the time Carp was probably like 9 or 10 years old. He was a resident of Phandalin, which was that small little town, and he was kind of like a sorcerer, so he had magic but didn't quite know how to control it or what he was doing. So his little things would be like, he showed the party when the party kind of discovered him. The party was like, he'd be like, oh look, I can shape the earth, and like he made like little things happen. But then he would also have like child of the corn moments where he'd kind of seem to be taken over. His eyes would glow, and like he would talk in a different voice, and he was almost like one of those touched special children that could make plants grow, or random little miracles,
right, yes.
So he took an immediate liking to Galil, and I thought of I was just gonna throw this in as a random child that they kind of encountered, but then the party kind of took more of a shine to him than I thought they were. They really got protective of him, especially when things started getting really serious in the town. And so they kind of took him with them as like a little charge for a while, and because he was had been told as a kid not to show off his magic, because nobody would understand this little kid being able to do these crazy things. They might get scared of him or whatever. So his mom had told him, his mom had told him, just kind of keep it on the down low. And so, interestingly enough, Kindred had this like fireside heart-to-heart with him, and was like, well, I'm going to teach you how to read, and I'm going to teach you like how to be a grown up basically. And I want you to promise me one thing, that you will never ever be afraid of showing who you truly are, because you
Aw.
are a magical person, both on the inside and on the outside. He's like, so never let that diminish. Don't let that fire go out in you. You are amazing. And like, he's looking at me dead in the eyes while telling me this. It still kind of like gets me all like inside, because I guess a lot of carp at that age was a lot of me at that age, of just like having all these like little hidden talents. Like, I loved writing a lot, and I loved being creative and doing all all that kind of stuff. And I remember the way I grew up, or was raised / grew up. It wasn't that it was like looked down on, but it was just like, there are better things you could do with your time, kind of thing. Like, it's like, where are you coming up with all of these crazy stories? Like, I remember my dad one time, he's like, where do you come up with this stuff? Like, there are other things you could devote your time to. And I was like, so after that, I kind of kept it to myself. And so to have someone
encourage little that
me,
is so great.
And so it was so weird, because I was like, Bear's just like, so that is why we haven't killed Kindred off permanently. Well, one of the
Kindred has redeeming qualities.
He has some redeeming qualities. Some. There are a few, but there are some. And so yeah, it was just like a moment where I was just like, my eyes stung, like I was on the verge of tears, and I was just like, okay, sure. And so, but after that, it was like him, Tempest, played by Sean, like also got very dad mode on him about some stuff. And it was just surprising, because these were coming from two people that in real life I would never expect them to be that way with like a kid kind of like, person. Not that they're like ew kids, but they're kind of like ew kids. So I was like, I kind of thought I expected the least amount of parenting coming from them, but I got the most amount of parenting coming from them. And even David, who played Pigug, like he too got really into taking care of this kid. And I think those were some of the more memorable like lessons for the kid, was the times when they would like talk to me, but then it's just that eye contact, and they're like having all of these really good sage advice kind of moments. And I was just like, oh wow, this is a surreal experience,
That is just wonderful.
But that's probably my one that will like stick with me forever. There's been countless moments where just like the craziest things will happen. I think that's part of one of the biggest joys for playing D&D, is the random things that will happen. Let's see. Oh, question for Iskra.
Ooh, okay.
What other players' characters do you think would be a lot of fun to play as? What other players' characters do you think would be a lot of fun to play as?
Inhabiting other characters is awesome in general, so I like to do it.
Yeah.
I think I could never do it as well, but I love Soul. Like, it would be so much fun to play as Soul. But that characterization.
Soul is amazing. I was, not that I was hesitant, but I was just like, I've never had a druid. I haven't looked into druids. I was like one of the classes that I never quote unquote prepared for in writing stuff. So I was like, I don't know how to help him, play this out. So I was kind of nervous about it, because I was like, okay, well, here we go. Let's see what happens. And it's turned into like one of my most cherished random, things, is watching Soul or experiencing Soul do very Soul things. And I think the fact that his name is Soul, as like sunshine and sun, but at the same time he has so much soul, as in like SOUL, like,
oh, for sure.
I think that was such a clever little play on words.
He does that, like, naivety of like the ways of the the nations
Hmm.
of Faerun
Yeah.
uh thing really well as having the like natural wisdom about stuff, and
Right.
then actually just using the mechanics of the druid class. He does a great job as so that's like um
Hashtag Soul Survivor.
yeah, I think Soul would be a fun character to play as. Also, I have to say, like, I really dig the like Cthulhu-y qualities of like the warlock class.
Yeah.
So playing Aliquin would probably be fun too.
Oh my gosh.
Like and dealing with that. And now that we've got like we've had one creepy dream sequence already.
Oh.
Like
Oh. Yes.
dealing with
Yes.
that kind of stuff is a blast. And I have to say, like in the past, I've been really wanting to play. I've never had like a great opportunity to do it, but wanted to play a character that has like the touch of madness type of thing
Hmm.
going on, and it like affects their speech patterns and that sort of stuff. And I would love to kind of go that road
That
with
route.
somebody at some point. Maybe someone who starts off a little bit more normal, but
Right. And then just as
bends
it
over the course of
progresses, yeah.
things.
Um
So,
and unfortunately, I don't
I mean,
think
hopefully that doesn't happen to Aliquin because, you know,
I don't know. You heard it here first.
we need given the DM ideas, we need Al in his coherent
in his
state
coherent state.
in
Well,
the
and
party.
that was the that was the interesting thing with when we were starting, when we did our quote, kind of like session 0, and we're kind of throwing in character ideas. And at the time, Vidalcan, they're a race that comes from Ravnica, right? It's like a place that is located
Which is another
more,
campaign setting
yeah,
for those who do not know.
is located, oh, excuse me, is located more on in the Magic the Gathering realm of things. So it's like basically it's a whole nother planet. I mean, it is a whole nother planet. Um, and so the Vidalcan are like this blue skinned, um, very wise and technical savvy kind of race. I guess if we were to make a comparison, it's kind of like when we think of elves, but you put aliens, like really wise aliens that have been around for a long time. It's kind of like the combining of the two almost. They're very capable when it comes to magic and how it applies to like technology and stuff. So he had, at the time, Vidalcan was still, I think it was Unearthed Arcana. It wasn't even like an
Ooh,
established
okay,
class
cool.
yet, because the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica hadn't come out. It was like a couple months. I think it was like a month or two after we started. So he had made his class through there, and I had no idea really what a Vidalcan was, except that it was like a blue smurf of a person. So I was like, okay, sure. And so we kind of ironed out his character later on, and I don't think he's going to be able to join us for Wednesday's thing, but so I'll kind of dive in a little more with his thing. But he yeah, he had that, like, his patron, he wanted to make sure it was kind of dark, kind of had the tentacle, like he liked that nautical style thing,
Very cool.
stylizing. So I was like, okay, but he wanted to have more of a mystery to it. He would, his story is more like it was born out of more desperation than it was like intention. So
Yes, which that's fantastic.
yeah, so it was kind of like he knew what he got into, but he didn't, because he had basically left home to try and find medicinal help for his mom, his ailing mom. And he had stolen a boat, and they had lived on a small little like fishing village of an island. He had stolen a boat, tried to get to the mainland. His father was a merchant, a traveler, so he was never home. And so he had as with a lot of D&D characters, they have daddy issues or parental issues of some sort or another. And he had left, got maroon slash. I think that was, I don't remember if it was a storm, but he just got lost at sea. And as he was kind of starting to die out there alone, he was like, I need someone to help me. I'll give anything to be able to, help my mom and do this. And so next thing he knew, he woke up on the shores outside of Neverwinter. And that's kind of where he had gotten started was, finding a job so he could get money to get help for his mom. So it was like he was fresh on the I'm a new warlock and I don't know how to use my powers kind of thing, which was great because he was a new player and we were still learning. So he was like, I both don't know how to use my powers in game and in real life. I gotta ask a question for the Groovy Gal. Who is your favorite person to roleplay with? Ooh.
Oh,
Wait a second. Iskra superfan. I see what you're doing there. Brilliant. So we have a question from the Iskra superfan.
Yes.
Go for it.
Well, I don't want to pick favorites,
No.
right? Because I enjoy everybody
Right.
in the campaign. And it would be a cop-out to say, well, the DM, because there's so many different characters that I get to interact with
I mean, that's not a bad answer. I mean, I wouldn't care.
when I'm role-playing the DM. But, I think that Iskra has managed to have pretty good interactions here and there with most of the party. But I enjoyed her moments connecting with Sonder on board the airship at a couple of different times.
Yeah.
So I think, I'd like to do that more. But I think that's fun. And I think that comes down to who the characters are, probably.
Right.
But then I also know that, both myself and Saunders' character are both Pisces, if you believe in
Yeah.
astrology, which I do not particularly. But I do think that we have some commonalities as people too, that maybe makes that a little more natural, and why we both chose monks to play as in the first place.
And have watery backgrounds.
For real, right? We ended up being pretty similar. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, no, there's definitely a interesting gravitation, you could say, that kind of goes on between water-based characters. I don't know why it is the way it is, but that's just what my experience has been. Also,
you've had other water characters glomming together, like little molecules of H2O.
Yeah, that's exactly any character that seemed to have any sort of connection to water, Sonder would immediately gravitate towards. Also, any body of water, anything that has water. I could have a map that had a small fountain in the middle, and he in this one particular instance was
I love it.
Got all up in that fountain, wanting to see if there were any secrets about it, because clearly I had to put it there for a reason, and I was like, literally, I did not. It was just there. It was just a fountain. It's just a fountain.
There's a fun fact about me. I actually worked in water quality for a while, and so that's for I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe. But I love water infrastructure as well. So
oh man,
big commonality with Sonder there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so then this kind of goes into Paris says hashtag moist monks. Oh no.
Oh no, I'm afraid that's gonna be a thing now. It feels very easy to be a thing.
I could see it. I could see that being a thing. No, yeah. So with Iskra, then let's go into a little talk about Iskra, since I feel like
we're heading that way, so why not?
Yeah. So tell us about Iskra.
Oh, Iskra. Well, what's to tell?
Everything. I mean,
everything.
Obviously, you don't want to. I don't think we have really too many spoilers in the way of storyline for her, but
not so much. I mean, there's maybe bits and pieces, right? But I think most of Iskra's backstory kind of exists out there in the Twitch streams, right? So,
yeah.
Oh no.
Wait, Yeah, it's true. We had the psst.
Yes.
Although your
Just
first
got like the super
the
soaker.
super soaker, yeah, you just pump it up and then just go to town. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, right. So she's from Ravnica again, like the race that Aliquin is. So different realm, different land. Um, Ended up being roped into this adventure through some uh, unexpected circumstances, interacting with Aliquin and the Knights of Silvermoon,
Yep.
the organization. But I guess in terms of like background before the campaign, you know, she was a poor kid, and Ravnica is like a big city, right? Like
Yeah.
it encompasses the entire everything.
Yeah.
And her parents like just made crummy like peasant food for the warehouse workers there in one of the poor districts. And they've got a few daughters, and their grandpa still lives with them, and
Yeah.
you know, like little tight family unit, just making a living. And Iskra got the opportunity basically to, you know, like attend a school for underadvantaged children or something, you know,
Right.
right? To try to boost her up in the world, although there were rumors that there were ulterior motives to the reason for the existence of the school, which may or may not be true. Um,
Potentially.
and that is how she got her monk abilities there, studying at that place.
Yeah.
That fell off, and you know, like anyone in society today, you know, who's lived in a city, that things didn't work out, and ended up not being able to attend that school anymore. So she was jobless, and that's how she ended up like busking and doing other musicianship work and things like that. And you know, being in places where through the course of that she would learn information that maybe she could sell to. So that's
Being
you
at the
know,
right place
cursory,
at the right time is
but
key in Dungeons and
she's
Dragons.
but she's a very family motivated person, and also has a soft spot for, you know, people just like commoners, people in downtrodden crummy circumstances.
Right.
So it's natural for her to want to help out in this situation, especially the more that she's around and she learns like just how bad Thay is.
Yeah.
That, you know, she's willing to take people's words for things, because like guilds are really, really important to Ravnica.
Right.
And so if a powerful organization says, hey, this is really
This is the
critical,
way. Yeah. This is the way
then she's probably gonna believe it. Which, like with the Knights of Silvermoon, that's basically the word that she got, was like,
Right.
hey, this is important. And the last little adventure that she was on seemed like it. So
No,
yeah.
it was kind of a big deal. So, and another important question: if this girl was a Disney princess, which one would she be?
Which one would she be? Gosh. Well, she has to be someone from like I guess we could work in like personality wise,
Yeah.
or we could work in, you know, terms of upbringing. You know, that's tough, because a lot of them have different facets that I think are kind of Iskra,
Right.
but aren't precisely. I mean, you saw that like Jasmine enjoyed being among the common people, right? Like she had a soft spot for them,
Right.
and definitely had kind of like a kind of screw this, I'm doing it streak that Iskra tends to also participate in.
Yeah.
Like she tends to side with Galil and Aelin when we're determining like what the best course of action is, and they
Yeah.
tend to be people who are like let's go do it
let's
right
just do
now.
it. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's do
so
this. They are the usually Galil and Tempest had a thing for a while where they were like the de facto let's go do this kind of thing, or let's go do that. Pigug would go along with them. Kindred was always the voice of caution, I guess is a word you could use. But his was normally like it'd go beyond caution to where it was more like
well, like let's plan it out. Let's have a very good
or let's just not get
100%
involved.
solution
Yeah,
here,
let's
so we
not
can
get involved and let's see how it plays out. And if it drags us in there, then sure. His was more of the if we don't have any other choice, then we'll go for it. Versus Pig Egg was more like he was super brazen, would just rush into things. Tempest and Galil were that right in that middle ground of like they were people of action, but they were also not ones to just rush into danger. And so now it's kind of like it has been a lot of Galil having to be like, okay, let's do this, or let's get this done. Sonder too will throw that in there on occasion. He'll be like, yeah. But he's more of the heart, kind of let's get this done because we want to help these people, or because of this, that, and the other. Galil's just like, I just want to beat some heads in.
Yeah, Iskra definitely has like a strike while the iron is hot mentality. Like this opportunity could be gone. You never know.
Right.
Things are always changing in a big place like Ravnica. So that's if you have a chance, you do it. That's the idea.
I am apparently definitely Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
All of your books, and your weird learning that you've got going on here.
I have all of my books on the wall right here.
Yes.
That are definitely real and not fake whatsoever. He likes stories and hairy beasts. Wow. Listen, sir. Call me out like that. The level of audacity we'll go with. All right. Well, yeah. So the Iskra came from Ravnica. Iskra is now in a really foreign realm, dealing with these foreign concepts. You guys had met Aliquin there.
Yes.
And kind of fell in with him and his father. That you guys had met. Belen.
She definitely thinks of Aliquin as an anchor to her to the previous existence.
Yeah. I mean, considering how you guys
and not just because of the device either, but because of their shared adventure. And they spent 3 months together before actually being in the world right now.
Yeah. So it had been, that's right. So to catch everybody up, so Iskra and Aliquin, while they had been in Ravnica, Aliquin's dad had a device, a little necklace that Aliquin now wears around his neck, that kind of was meant to be able to bridge large distances, because Belen, his father, had been a Ravnican scientist, one of the actually head researchers there of the Azet League, and during one of his experiments had accidentally wound up in Faerun, but had no way of getting back because he didn't have the technology at his disposal. So he had to kind of set up a living for himself. Had wound up meeting Aliquin's mother there. They wound up having a child. But then because something with the way Belen's presence, the more he was around her, caused his mother to get sick. Almost kind of like a latent radiation poisoning kind of thing, because he was from a different plane. So during Aliquin's growth, or his upbringing, almost said growth, while he grew as a plant, as he sprouted into the fine young warlock he is now, he had split ways. Basically, the dad was like, I'm not going to be around as much because he was needing to find a way to get back to Ravnica because he knew that he could help cure his mother there. So that's why he was gone a lot. But for Aliquin, and partially his mom, because his mom didn't really say much as to the reason why. Just that his father was a merchant and was always gone all the time. And so Aliquin just had this whole concept of his dad just being an ass, just was never around. And so he had this resentment for him, and just see his mom continually get sick and sicker and sicker. And his dad would stay away longer and longer periods of time. And so out of desperation, that's why he left. Well, lo and behold, he winds up, his dad finds a way to get back to Ravnica with the aid of a character that the players met named Kamala. Kamala was part of a group within Faerun known as the Zentharim. They kind of run a countrywide black market, I suppose you could say. But they're more like black markets with a dash of spies and intrigue. Almost like most shadow organizations that you'll see in a lot of comics and things like that, where they're like kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes, but also dealing with information and powerful artifacts and items that they kind of sell to the highest bidder.
Yeah, because information is a commodity too, of course.
Information's always a commodity. It's all about who you know, what you know, and what kind of magic you got, or whatever. So Kamala was part of this group. They were interested in Balin because he was an alien, very much, and was looking for powerful things, so like this was right up their alley. So she found a way to get him a device that could grant him whatever he wanted. And like basically they found a ring that would grant him a wish. And so he used that to be able to get back home, and then used his technology to be able to power a way to get back, and had wound up getting Aliquin and was like, I'm here for you, and I need you, I have your mother and all this kind of stuff. And we set that up because Aliquin was in real life moving away, and so we had to get a way for him to not be with our group. So we had his dad come in and basically spirit him away to Ravnica, which you wound up meeting him probably, I think it wound up being like technically a few days after his arrival back in Ravnica, because time works differently whenever you're moving from planet to planet.
I ended up really enjoying, I thought, even though it was set up because of life circumstances, it was a really good, like, story beat, character development, interesting moment to have Aliquin interacting with his father and learning more about that whole situation.
Yeah, he was still learning about, like, his dad. It was a really weird situation because here he had so much, like, angst, animosity, I guess, towards his dad, and was just like, oh no, I don't know if I can trust this guy. But then the more he saw the situation and saw his mom was recovering and seemed to be doing well, and the marvels that Ravnican society brought with it, he was kind of like, oh, okay, this is maybe not so bad. And then his dad had developed that device that would allow them to travel back and forth, and through his experiments with that device, it accidentally wound up bringing Aliquin and Iskra back to to Faerun with it was supposed to charge on its own, but you guys had been supercharging it with the devices that Balin had. Now you just kind of have to wait and see.
Yes, at his laboratory.
Yeah. So you knew that you could make there's ways you can make small distance jumps using some of the power and knowing where he's going to go, where he wants to go. But then there's no way of knowing how long it'll take for it to regain its charges, or how many charges it needs to go a certain distance. So he's just been kind of holding on to it, seeing how and when he might need that again. So.
Which, like that moment with Aliquin, like that capped off that session, or that little like one shot.
Yeah.
3-shot, what it ended up being, I think, right? 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Where the device, you had to, get a clear mental feeling, like almost an emotion
Yeah.
of the location that you wanted to be, and then use that to transport yourself. It's neat because with him talking to his father and the moment that, Iskra had outside her family's house and everything like that, and
Yeah.
then the thing that made it go all haywire and sent them back was Alcuin thinking of home
Home.
and going back to Faerun.
Yeah,
Like,
because
that whole thing ended up kind of being about that home theme and family, and that was really cool. So
he was like thinking, all right, I gotta go home. But in your mind, that first place you think of home is not always necessarily, oh, my new address. It's gonna be where you feel the most like an emotional attachment to. And for him, he had grown up in that little hut, so it's a good thing that it was surrounded by water and that you guys didn't wind up dying upon reentry. But it was, I kind of liked how that wound up playing out because I don't know, like you said, it has that deep tie into like family and home, and he hadn't quite had that connection yet there, and so had he had probably spent a little more time, then maybe things
who
would not
knows?
have it would not have turned out the way he did. And now to try and use it again, if he was wanting to picture it, like now he has to really think about where he's gonna be going. That's kind of key to how this little thing works. But that brought you guys here, and you had kind of come into Faerun already with it being in all sorts of chaos. You had learned that Thay and their army, the Red Wizards, had kind of taken over the world, or taken over a good portion of the coast anyway, which I guess we hadn't really delved into much with you
Yes.
since you had started. So that in between, oh my gosh, okay, here we go.
Right. So there's like 3 distinct like eras that I can think of right now, and which is like the just after the original like session 0 and the adventure that you had, that eventually became the
This
homebrew
campaign, yeah.
campaign that you're in, right? And then there's so that era up through Alcuin's vanishing, right?
Right.
And then there's the little chunk of time where you guys still played for a while, right? While he was gone.
Oh yeah, no, we kept going. We kept going.
Yeah. Okay. So then there's that, and then there's this Alcuin is back time period as well. So in the run up, right, like you're following basically the normal
just like a
trajectory of Faerun.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then when does Thay start getting spicy?
So,
like when do the Thayans decide that they have designs on
so apparently
the Sword Coast?
Yeah, apparently this had been kind of planned for a while, right? They were planning to try and move across the country. What really ramped up their thing though was that they're divided. They have like the main lich, Saz Tam. He's the one who runs Thay, and then he has 8. The circle of 8 is the ones who are under him, and they represent each of the 8 schools. What his diviner had a prophecy, a prophetic vision, and it involved like the success of his empire. Relied on the fact that there was a kid, a child of the moon and sun out there somewhere that would stand against him. And I realized, like, I had come into this from writing like sci-fi fantasy books, right? So I know how that works, and you can easily write all sorts of prophecies and stuff because you're the one in control of everything. So I just kind of applied that to this, and then found out afterwards that that's kind of hard to do because you don't know if your players are gonna
End
actually
up going
live
down
through
that road or
live
not.
through the
Yeah.
the prophecy
Will
or
the
not.
prophecy be fulfilled? That's hard to do, for
So
sure.
they had already started they had started stealing people is basically how it started, and that was the one tie that brought in all the characters, was that there were bandit organizations and people that were just kidnapping magic users and ferrying them off to who knows where. And there had been some that came to Phandalin, and they were looking for someone important. Well, it turned out they were looking for a child. They had knew that it was a child. That it was in a small town by the forge. So I had a whole like prophecy that I wrote up, and that they had
That's
like
fantastic.
started passing around as flyers. So I wrote it like in Draconic.
Oh, I love it.
And it had like this really weird magic symbol, and then had like Arcanum like all on the side. Got the paper and tore up all the edges so that it would look super crazy, and then pass it around the group. And they were like, "Well, we don't know how to read this." I was like, "Well, who knows how to read Draconic?" And I want to say it was Kindred. That was like, "Oh, I know." So I passed him the one where it was in English, so he could read it to everybody else. So it talked about the city by the forge, which they had just found the forge in Phandalin. And it says the small will gain strength, and he shall have a family of angels divine. The herald of heaven comes forth from the heart of a child. He will stop death and the dragon, though at great cost to himself. The rising sun and the moon will themselves fight for him. A child of night and day. Knights will rally, and only by fate's hand will they reach the finale. And then on the side, I said this a prophecy of blood can be undone by blood, because the way she sees things is through like blood visions, right? So that's my loophole that I gave myself. I was like, if certain people die, this could all get changed, but
Unravel. Yeah.
right. So right now, the world's kind of going along on this line, unless someone dies, and then the prophecy can switch to another track, basically. So they were coming to this place by the forge. They had found that it was like this place. So they knew it was a child, and they knew it was near here. That's about when the party discovered that Carp was more than just a kid that had sorceress powers. So he was basically like a little nuke. Like he had a lot of power to him, but he didn't know how to control it. And so they're like, all right, we're going to teach you. You're our little Tamagotchi of death. Not really. But I was like, nuclear powered Tamagotchi is what I lovingly called him.
That's fantastic.
So they had to keep him safe, because death meant was Saztam, the leader of the Red Wizards, the Thay Empire. And they found out that he was working with the Cult of the Dragon. So he's supposed to stop or help stop death and to help stop the dragon, the two forces that are at work at taking over. So
I like that you basically have like nefarious version of dudes looking for the new Dalai Lama.
Yes.
Like
yes. So that's
and the
so
party
they were
decides
like,
to
okay,
intervene because they love Carp.
right. And that was the thing, is like it started with like this kid that I had initially hadn't had like these grand schemes for, but then the more that I played with this idea, the more I was like, well, what if I gave them someone to protect, but then also their actions, because, and we'll go over this Wednesday, they were all over the place with their morality. And I feel like Iskra got a little taste of that on this last week. Like they can be super random sometimes. So I was like, all right, so this is going to determine how this is going to pan out. Yeah, sure, I have this prophecy here, but if it actually comes through or not, we'll see. Because what they were going to do, just like a child, he's going to pick up the characteristics of those he's around. And up until that point, he had had a halfling mother that turned out to be not real. There was this really dramatic revelation of he was talking to Galil and the girl, the lady that was his mom, because they thought he was just a halfling child. They were like, she was like, oh, well, I want you to take care of him. Like, and help guide him. And once he said yes, that was like the word to break the spell, and it became apparent that she was like made of magic, and she just kind of like vanished into like moon motes.
She was like a guardian artificial intelligence
Yes.
that like
very much. And so
Wow.
then, because he had kept getting visions from his, because he's an ASMR, so he kept getting visions and being told by his messenger, basically, that this kid's important. You need to watch this kid. And so then it found out that they are both of the same line. That Carp has divine blood of the moon, the goddess of the moon, Saloon, and Galil is also like a descendant of the goddess of the moon. So they were like family, right? And so he was like, so he had this like, okay, I'm gonna protect this kid because he is kind of like his little cousin, but at the same time technically like his uncle or something along those lines. It's space families, there's just weird you know how it goes.
Cosmic
families,
bloodlines,
cosmic bloodlines are bananas.
Crazy.
So they were like, all right, so let's get this kid out of here. There was these two red wizards that were there. They had gone out to the main dungeon, and when they came back, they found that the whole town that they had been staying in, all of Phandalin, had been burned to the ground. And that's how they had found this prophecy, it was nailed to a stake outside of town. And they had taken the kid with them just in case, because they had heard that there was some red wizards around. So just in case, let's take you with us to this dangerous dungeon where they had some of the heart to hearts. That's where the heart to hearts were, in the darkness down below.
To take you to this dangerous dungeon with us. Well, I mean, if they're going there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to test out what the kid's made of. And so when they came back and they found out there was a couple of survivors from the town. They were like gathered together, like, all right, let's get you to Neverwinter. It's the closest big city or whatever. That night, there was a assassination attempt on the party and the kid by the two red wizards that had snuck in as like guards, basically. And one of them, at the last minute, one of the characters wound up turning on her master, because it was like an apprentice and a master. And the apprentice wound up turning on her master and helped the party defeat it. That apprentice, it was one of our players. Her name's Bree. She played a character named Verity, a tiefling. And she's got a whole story that we'll, I'm sure, cover on Wednesday or whatever, hopefully. And so together they were like, all right, let's get the hell out of here. Let's go to Neverwinter. And so they were at Neverwinter for a while, trying to like find direction where they needed to go, what they needed to do to help this kid. Faye was kind of out there, but so far the Red Wizards hadn't really made too much of a move. And so they spent a couple of nights there in Neverwinter, and then finally I was like, all right, it's time to start the new campaign. This was like that in between, like what's going down. And so we had the Fall of Neverwinter, which was the coordinated assault of all of the capital cities within the Lord's Alliance. They were all hit in one night, so that no one could take up arms to help the others. It's just like they opened up portals in different places, and like troops poured out, the airships poured out, which at the time there weren't any airships, so there wasn't any like sort of installations in place to help counteract ships.
Yeah, I mean, having that like technological superiority had to be huge.
So they basically, it was all like like a lot of stuff happened. We had Kindred's death, and then eventual like reincarnation, which we'll touch on that later. And they were like leaving the city, and there were wizards on those airships that were just like fireballing the city. It was really intense horseback riding scene out of the city itself. And so that kind of just started them on their way. Before kind of like before that last dungeon in Phandalin, this is going back again, that's whenever Alcuin wound up being pulled away. So he didn't see a lot of what happened after, with that aftermath. He knew of the kid. He knew that there was some rumblings with the Red Wizards, but other than that, that was his last experience on this plane. And then it was just boop, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. And so it was just a matter of them being on the run after that, because they knew the wizards were after Carp. They had sent Carp with another group of trusted NPCs to go continue his training, but also as a diversion, because they knew that they were being kind of scried on or possibly being watched. So they took another kid that they had met around the same age, and he was there. He was the decoy. It was like a half-orc boy known as Kratir.
I remember hearing
Kratir.
about
Yes.
the situation.
Yeah. So he wound up going on their adventures for a while, and then it just like everything just has kind of spiraled since then. But that was basically the big move. That was the big switch between kind of like a calm setting. They were in Neverwinter just kind of piddling around for a while, like not really sure what to do next. And then all of a sudden it was just like, here we go. I'm like, let's start this. And I wanted to make it like, I mean, because it's one thing when there's like a clock that's ticking, you're like, oh, well, at some point we need to defeat the, Red Wizards once this kid has grown up. But I was like, this is literally going to take decades if we just wait for this kid to grow up. Like, forever. It's like, so let's make it a little spicier. And so now the Red Wizards have taken most of the western seaboard, and they own most of the lands to the east. So now they have, like, the inner sections are now surrounded. They took out their biggest threat first, and now they can just do this slow encroaching to the center. And that's kind of where we are at now, is like, there has been, a pushback, but it's been almost a year now since their first invasion. And so things are kind of starting to settle down. That initial steam of like, well, we're not going to let the Reds, take over, has turned into kind of like, well, they're somewhat...
No one was able to mount like a good resistance
because
initially.
Because all the big hitters were taken out right from the beginning. And so it's just these little pockets. And when you have a vastly superior magic force and this strangely unending supply of hobgoblins that seems to be their main troop source. Like, that was the other weird thing that the party hasn't quite figured out yet, is like most of their soldiers are hobgoblins, but the amount of hobgoblins they're using is insane. So where this seamlessly unending supply of them has come from has kind of been a mystery. There's been some touching on it, but
it definitely seems like there's some major issues to deal with. You've got the endless supply of soldiers, the ability to travel really easily, the air superiority. That makes they difficult to reckon with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they found this is one of those things where it's like, I don't want to ruin things for you too, so I was trying to navigate around certain things, but they have found evidence that the Reds have certain points where they can teleport in things. There's one in Neverwinter. There was a large volcano outside of Neverwinter that exploded a couple of decades before all this happened, and it tore up like a Grand Canyon kind of chasm inside the city.
Cool.
So it goes down forever, and it was in the poor section, of course. Those poor bastards. But the secret forces of Thay that had been in Neverwinter used the shield that was kind of covering the chasm, preventing things from coming up, because it connects to the Underdark. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Underdark, but there's a bunch of nasty critters that are down there. So they had a barrier in place. Well, they basically changed that barrier of the chasm into a reflecting mirror of sorts, where it could just you could bring up, and that's where those airships initially rose from, was from the chasm. And so there is a couple of spots all across the the Sword Coast seaboard that have some sort of magical place where they can funnel troops out of. And that was kind of like that was brought up in one of they had raided a barracks, I think, at one point, and they had grabbed a bunch of notes, and they had like troop movements that I had also typed out for them, as well as a map that had circles and X's, and they were trying to figure out what all those things were for. There's supposed to be one that's near Silvery Moon or north of Silvery Moon, which has been touched on, I think, a little bit with the one shot and like some of the talk that's been going on here is that they know that there's a close resupply, but not sure where. So I'm sure that's going to come up. But yeah, it's been and it's continuing to be a very interesting thing because now it's like with that thing in mind of like with blood, there is nothing is certain, you know, just because there's a prophecy that says this doesn't mean that if certain people are killed that's not going to change that. Or what if those people have already been killed and has this changed it? So it's kind of like we're going to have to see what's going to happen next. Carp has grown up rather quickly because of his divine heritage. He's now like matured really fast. Once he started really harnessing his abilities, he started growing even faster because he was kind of unlocking that secret self that he had.
Sort of did like a chrysalis spiritual journey thing, right?
Yeah.
So
that's right. Because I forgot you guys had come up around that time whenever he had
like right as he was awakening
he'd had a
from
really he'd had a really traumatic experience at sea basically, and then they had brought him through, and he had kind of had this protective cocoon kind of thing over him. And after that, he had come out basically aged 10 years. So now he's like early to mid 20s, I think, is the general age that he's at. But now he's kind of had more of a in touch with his lineage thing. So he knows his ties to both his gods, his godparents. And I think
godparents, not godparents.
Yeah. Yeah, his
the party is more like his godparents.
Right. No, and there was definitely some moments whenever we had we have a question for the lady who guides Iskra. Is green your favorite color?
There is a lot of green here, right? And my eyes are also green. I like green. I think it's a really verdant, alive color. And it's still like cool enough, like not cool like cool, but like
temperature
cool. Yeah, enough that you can use it in a lot of situations without it like giving people like migraines or something, you know. But my favorite color is actually yellow. It's a specific type of yellow.
Mustard. You like mustard, don't you?
Kind of. I mean, not like straight up. I do like mustard. There's a lot of good mustards out there. Let me tell you. You get like a nice. I really like this one that's called the Pepper House Gourmets, I think, right now. That like when I make these sandwiches that I base off of these sandwiches that I had at these like train station kiosks in Germany, having the right mustard is important. And so that's like a nice kind of mild, creamy, but a little more substantial than like a classic yellow mustard. So yeah, but no, yellow is my favorite color.
What kind of yellow?
So it can't be like too bright. It's not pale either. It's like a nice, strong yellow that isn't so dark that it gets into mustard. But it isn't so bright that it's like like cartoon duck. There, and it's not. The school bus is too orange. So you've got like these things. Okay. I can tell you all the things that it's not.
Around it that it's not.
And then that will get you to what it is.
We need that hex code.
I know, right?
Just the perfect yellow. That's what we need.
The perfect yellow. It's hard to get at, but when you've got it, you've got it.
Good to know.
But green is very nice. I have a lot of green things and like teal things, like this and all that.
Yeah. So, well, green goes with yellow, right?
Well, it's I mean like
could be like a John Deere tractor.
The Brazilian flag there's I think an Australian football team maybe that also uses green and yellow. So yeah, there's a lot of people that do those together. For me, I can't. Although I love yellow, I don't look good in yellow.
You just don't
Like
wear it. You like yellow, but you just don't wear yellow.
so I can't wear it. Sadly.
Womp womp. Wait, hold on. Wait, I have the thing for this. Where is it?
Oh yes, our radio like afternoon radio talk show
Yep.
sound effects.
Yep. I don't even think. I think in all of that they don't have like a clapping sound. It's just either huzzah or yay, but there's no like studio clapping. That's what I need. Studio clapping, because it's either just or it's. But we don't have a clapping noise. I need to get some clapping sound effects.
Bananas in pajamas. Perished.
Yep.
Coming down the stairs. Yes.
Yep. Oh, don't get that song
Bananas
stuck in my head.
pajamas. Okay, well, so other banana themed song. Have you ever heard Banana Phone by Raffi? It is marvelous.
Wait, I think I have. I feel like either you have mentioned it before because we were talking about bananas in pajamas, or somebody else
it might have occurred.
Or somebody else brought it up, because I do seem to recall that.
He's a delightful children's singer.
Yes. I think you did show this to me.
Yes.
That was one of the times we were talking about it.
Look it up.
I'll look it up.
Viewership.
Do it. Just do it. Do it. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Usually I come up with those sorts of little fun facts for the characters too, but I don't think I've thought about that very much for Iskra.
Like
whether she has a favorite color.
color.
But I find it easier to roleplay characters if I do some of those things. If I think of like some,
because it brings up
family moments, like little things that maybe aren't consequential, but like stuff that they remember from their past, or
right.
Things like that.
Well, because it brings out a level of like, not familiarity, but it brings out a level of like where you can relatability, I guess. You're like, oh, well, this person likes this color. Yeah. You can pick out things that whenever you're talking about something else, you're like, oh wait, yes, we like this too, or she likes this too, and be like, oh yeah, this green scarf that so and so has, you're like, oh yeah, no, Iskra's all about that, and it kind of helps you connect a little more with the world at large, but then also with the other characters as well.
And like a lot of those things, sometimes another character may never actually learn, but it's still in the background, right? Like
and it's not like you're gonna say specifically, I like your scarf because it's green, but Iskra might, have an affinity, react to it in a off kind of way, where it's just like, oh, they kind of tend to like this person, or she gravitates towards whatever.
Like I had a character once that I think maybe it came up in conversation one time, but a cleric that the way that she did spells was like a mind palace. Have you ever heard about that? Right, mm-hmm. Where like you create like a place, a location in your head with like a bunch of different like objects and things, or like different rooms.
Right.
And then that is like how you remember things, and people will use it to like study for tests or like remember subjects. But for this cleric, like when she was doing her daily spell preparation that you have to do as a cleric, or any spellcaster really,
right.
She was like retreating to her mind palace and like imagining different, like there's all these things in it that represent the different spells that she has, and she would go up and like interact with them in her mind. And so she had like this, basically it was like a garden, with like a fountain over here, or like a little like wind chimes or something, and each of those represented a different spell. And so that's what she was going and doing. And I don't think any of the other players actually ever knew that about her, but that's how her spellcasting worked, and I thought that was really cool.
That's a super awesome idea, though. I mean, the fun part is about that sort of thing is it can very much literally be a real mind palace in D&D world. You know, it's like for us in real
right,
life,
right.
it's like, oh yeah, this is what we do in our mind. But for her, it could literally be a astral projection into a pocket dimension that has this, you know,
Yeah, or like the corner of her deity's like realm or something, like
right.
that plane, you know? Uh,
This
who
is how she
knows?
accesses that. Clerics
So
are like fantastic to me. Like there's such an interesting. I mean, them and warlocks. At first, warlocks were very daunting because I was like, how do you portray? Like portraying an NPC is one thing, but portraying a patron deity, a patron for a warlock is so like up to, you know, you and the warlock, I guess. You know
oh, for
what
sure.
you want to do. At least with deities, you have like a. This is how that person is, or this is what that deity is
Yeah, they'll
about.
give you
So you,
domains
yeah,
too.
so you
Like this,
kind of
this
like
is
that
the
kind of
god
helps.
of hygiene and leprechauns, and so like
I
you
want that
know,
deity. Can we? That's gonna be a canon deity now. Hi, I'm I'm the deity of hygiene, washing your hands, and pots of gold. Dead. I am dead.
always clean your coins before you store them at the
Yeah.
end of your rainbow.
Oh, it's 100% happening. We are. If it doesn't happen as an actual deity, it's gonna be like some Feywild, high Fey character. You know, that's just gonna be all about washing all of their treasures. So, oh, Parrish. Parrish says the goddess of feminine hygiene, Summer Eve.
It's
Wow.
important to have such a goddess, though.
hmm
Let me tell you.
What
What?
was Iskra's favorite subject in school?
Well, so when
Waterbending.
she was going to the academy there, right? Like using the elements was definitely really great, um, and something that was fun for her. Um, but ultimately, the whole foundation for all of that was musical study, believe it or not, because the way that they approached teaching being able to influence the elements there uh, was grounded in music, because music, you know, has like uh, with um, with the Simic Combine, the guild that she was a part of, they have these philosophies, the Hold Fast and the Upwelling,
hmm
which have to do with the way that they view nature, and as a result, like everything.
Yeah.
And so the Hold Fast is like this concept that there's like a steady state of constancy that like exists throughout everything, that is kind of keeping things, trying to trend things back to like a natural way that they should be, right? And then there's the Upwelling, which represents like progress and growth. And those things can come into conflict sometimes. If there's too much of one, then you can't have enough of the other, and
Right.
everything like that. But the way that they would teach being able to interact with that is through music, is because, you know, you've got someone who has to maintain the beat, and right, and so that's like the Hold Fast, and then the Upwelling is like the melody. And so you teaching themselves to interact with all of that was the way to, you know, make sure that they knew how to interact with all of those elements in a way that like one was not overpowering the other. And then two, it would it give you, you know, steadiness, because if you wanted to like remain on time and everything, and not thinking of the right words, but you know, that part, discipline.
Yeah.
But then also creativity, because you need to be able to come up with different ways to like it's like a group of jazz musician monks, right? Where finding ways that once you know the rules well enough, you can play with them,
Right.
and find ways to change things.
And to make
And so
beautiful
and so
music.
once So once you do that, then you can, start working on influencing the elements,
Right.
because it works in a similar way. Now you know the rules. Time to start, playing with it.
That
So
wow. Wait. So no. I mean, I don't want to like. Oh, I don't want to ruin this. Is this actually what? Because I haven't looked up a whole lot. I mean, I know the basics of the Simic Combine, but this is
yes,
is this your creation of that, or you're
yeah.
melding of the two?
So the holdfast and the upwelling are things
Or
that
they're actual
exist
things? Yeah.
as Simic concepts,
Yeah. With the
but it was
tying in the
never
music.
really discussed about like how they wound up teaching it or anything like
Right.
that. And so, but that's what I decided on for Iskra's school on my own. So
That's amazing. Like, so that's such no, but because that is such a good like a simple analogy that everyone is familiar with, but like makes complete
Exactly.
sense in this situation. Like, wow, I am impressed. I mean,
And her school was supposed to be full of like poor kids, right?
Yeah.
Some of them who had not ever had an education in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And so this great universal concept to relate to the universal concepts that are really important to the Simic is it just makes perfect sense. So to teach it that way.
Wow. Oh, Iskra, you're just so amazing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, me singing. I am not a great singer. But I wish that I were. And sometimes people have asked me if I do sing. I think generally though, it's people who don't know I'm trans and I have like a unique voice.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, why is that? Are you a singer? I'm like, no, I'm not. But uh, but yes, I would love to eventually, maybe someday, get Iskra singing a little bit.
We're gonna have Sonder teach us music. Is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have
Perfect. Yes.
a Sonder musical number where we just have one episode that's just musicals and everybody has to sing along. I don't think anybody would actually do that except for maybe us, but still. that would be something. There's always that one episode, right, in most TV shows where they're just like, oh, this is a musical number episode.
Oh
where,
yes.
where everything just
Anything that goes long enough needs a musical episode.
happens. Yep, I agree. That was a lot of detail that was beautifully done. If I didn't know better, I would say that she had prepared for this in advance. But that's just Iskra's just amazing like that.
Yeah. So that's
Iskra Sonder cover of WAP, the way of the pst. From earlier, way of the
Yes.
pst. That's yes. We're gonna work on that. It shouldn't be too hard to come up with something. Wow. Just wow.
If we could actually, if I had elemental powers for real, I would love to do a hilarious video with monks doing some water bending.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna
to-
happen somehow. I have a feeling
on
now
TikTok.
it's going to happen somewhere in the game. Somehow along the way, it's just gonna be a thing that's gonna happen. Well, who knows? The future is up in the air for the Brigade of 8.
Oh, definitely.
We have a lot of stuff that's coming up. I have a feeling that tomorrow's episode is going to be undoubtedly entertaining and very tense.
Oh, for sure.
have-
I can't even. Iskra's not even sure what she's going to do next. With all of this happening.
Yeah.
So
We have a lot that's going on, and I feel like as much as Silvery Moon isn't necessarily like a great seat of a great seat of power within the realm, it's still like it would be, if everything goes well, like the first big victory against the Empire. So it could help as a large rallying point. I mean, we think of like
to show that they can be beaten.
Right, exactly. And that's one of those things where it's like, not that there's necessarily a Death Star hiding under this, but this is the Battle of Yavin was like a big turning point for the Rebellion versus the Empire. And the Battle of Assault on Silvery Moon, while maybe not as world-ending as a Death Star could still be a really big rallying point for whatever comes next, because up until this point, the brigade has kind of kept a really low profile, and even Iskra and Aliquin, with the group that they were in with the Knights of the Living Order, they had kept a low profile too. This is their first time where the Knights of the Living Order had made such a bold stand against the Empire, whereas before they were kind of just like helping with like a mage underground railroad sort of thing, helping magic users get away from the Empire. Now they're actually going on the offensive. And
Yeah,
so,
there's definitely like different modes of resistance, right? There's like that survival mode where you don't really have enough coordination or
Right.
enough people to mount an actual like challenge.
Right.
You could just try to get by as best you can in a oppressive environment.
Right, exactly.
And then there's this, which I think it could have a symbolic sort of meaning too, since Silvery Moon is a more magical place. To take that from Thay, I think would send a message. So
No, for sure. I mean, and so far things seem to be going pretty okay, not like
yeah.
For the most part things seem to be going along smoothly. The one shot on the assault on Silvery Moon went well, so thank you for those who were here. Everything is going to hell, we are fine, says Galil. All is fine. Yeah.
Have you seen Galil, have you seen that meme of like, it's a clip from Backdraft, and like the fireman like busting out of the burning building is like carrying the "This is fine" dog.
No, are you serious?
Yes,
I have not seen
yeah,
that.
it came out after the Biden victory, which of course that didn't save everything,
right?
But
that's yes, Galil has seen it. I have not. You'll have to send that to me, because I have not seen that. But yeah, no, this is kind of like a really interesting moment, and one of those that's like, you step back, because each episode for us has taken, you've been playing with us now for a little bit. It's been at least a couple of months,
definitely.
Right? But in all reality, it's been like, I think 6 days.
I think it was right around when the pandemic started, when I started playing with you guys, really, right?
Yeah.
Not quite at the beginning of it, but I think, in the summer at least.
So, but in game time, it was 5 days of travel from the city of Atet to, Silvery Moon, plus a couple. So you've been with this group for like a week, and have have had a lot of experiences in that short amount of time, getting to know everybody. What magical item does Iskra get for being the first guest? Well, that's a good question. If Iskra could pick anything, what would be her forte?
It's if Iskra the character, or Iskra the human. So
Ooh.
This is like the player.
Yeah.
Because if I could have any magical item myself,
yeah, let's go with that one. That's a good question. I like
then
that. What would you like,
Boy.
Miss Danik, from behind door number 1?
I know, right? Okay, so there's a serious answer. We won't get into that. I think like a good answer, though, like a fun one, and something that would be useful for the campaign is, like I've always got this damn water bottle, right? Like it's always a presence.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to have one that just is like constantly fillable. Like it's just an infinitely replenishing
Water bottle.
means of hydration. I would appreciate one of those.
Okay, I'll get the gnomes that live under my bed right on that. We're gonna get you.
And actually, that would be useful for Iskra too, if she had an infinitely replenishable water flask. She can only create water like once.
Yeah.
And then it's done for the day. or at least until she rests.
Right.
So
That is something that I think, the party doesn't start until Iska arrives. Get to work, gnomes. um,
an infinitely replenishable bottle of gin.
Well, see, and it's funny you say that because I have seen that happen before. Actually, in Critical Role, one of the characters, she's the small little goblin, and she has a flask that refills with alcohol.
Oh no!
And it's just infinite alcohol. So I have seen how that turns out.
So many headaches.
So, well, and that was the thing is like, her name was Not the Brave, which is like the best name. I just love that.
Was it just
it's
liquid
the
courage then?
Yeah, N-O-T-T, the Brave, not the Brave. But she was like only brave whenever she'd start drinking. So,
like many of us.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we could definitely try and work something. That is interesting though, because for an infinite amount of water, that would be great for Iskra to have, to be able to use, her water. It'd be very Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender, where she had that little like gourd that had the water that she would pull out of all the time.
Although, the necessity has been good. I know that Iskra's going to be spending some time in the future doing practicing, trying to deal with other elements.
I know. And so
right now with air, she's just kind of forcing it,
Right.
She's got to actually learn how that works. So.
And that would be that would make for a very interesting, a very interesting arc down the road, is like Iskra learning to control elements from elementally positioned people.
It's the Legend of Iskra.
The Legend of Iskra. Yes, we'll get. I'm looking really forward to the Toph episodes where we have small child, a small angry child that beats the crap out of everybody as you try and learn Earth skills.
Yes. And proclaims herself Melon Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yes. And then it can then we can have this small angry child just constantly berate Galil and or Kindred and or everyone else but Iskra. It'll be this is happening. This is the birth of a monster right here. It's coming.
This is a special DM wish character to be able to like take out frustrations with the party.
I have never used an NPC to do that. I don't know why you are throwing that at me, but I would definitely never, ever do that at all. In no way, shape, or form. I was like, wait, I thought about, like, dude, where's my Godzilla noise? Somewhere out in the universe, a small angry child was born, and you just hear Godzilla. Yes, that's happening. It's happening. Lies, all lies.
That's a groovy,
chill jug of Ravnica. Oh, there you go. Go home, Aaron. You're drunk. Listen, I am home. What are you talking about? And all I've been sipping on over here is caffeine. So if anything, I'm more caffeinated than I am drunk. And I haven't even finished this whole thing.
That magical item description, though, I don't know. I think Ravnica probably doesn't have a very good like environmental protection agency. I'd be worried about Ravnican river water. I think you probably need to go for like ground like.
This jug is a self-fulfilling jug of delicious.
Well water is probably your best bet there. I mean, think of the runoff at a planet that's like an entire city.
It is from old Ravnica.
Okay, yes.
Yes, before the pollution. Well, here's the thing, though. When you have magic, do you get pollution? You don't have.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, you still have like.
Because I know, like, but you have like the. Okay, it wasn't the Simic. What was it? The fungus people. The ones that lived underground. And they were in charge of, like, filtering the water, of decomposing.
Is that what? That's not the Golgari,
The
right? That's
Golgari.
the other under.
No,
Okay,
wait.
that's the other underground group, I
No,
think.
no, no. It is the Golgari, isn't it? The Golgari swarms and stuff, right? That sounds right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they were like mushroom focused and kind of, but they were the recyclers basically of Ravnica. So with them topped with the Azit League and their technological advances, I would assume that there was probably some water filtration, like plumbing stuff that they had going on. Probably
Yeah,
still
true,
not
true.
potable. Like, you know, you probably wouldn't want to just go up to any water source any puddle you find in Ravnica would probably not be the best. But
Yeah, it's not so much the whether they have the means of making it nice, more than I wonder about,
if they actually
whether
did
they
or not.
have the government apparatus that would support
Oh,
making it
right,
nice or not.
right.
Like,
No, you have a good point there. Yeah, whether they would actually do it or not. I don't know. We'll have to come up with some. I like that though. Chilled jug of Ravnica river water. Maybe we'll find a just chilled Ozarka bottle there in the
yes.
on the airship that Gabriel had been drinking from. You know.
Yeah, a modern campaign with a magical, like, crappy plastic water bottle would be absolutely great. Like,
So
having
crinkly.
some,
It's just so
yes,
crinkly, and it's like, because you know how when you reuse water bottles after a while, they just become almost like soft, and you just kind of like
yes.
crinkle them back into shape. Oh my gosh, yes, I like this idea. We'll just have to invent plastic in the game canon, and then you'll have the water.
That's a scourge. Inventing plastic in the game would be a terrible thing.
Look at this thing that we have created, for it will be grand. Yeah, there was a couple of times when we were in the early parts of the campaign, when we would go and we would be like the real big famous plastic. Yes.
Turns out it's been a Captain Planet campaign the
The
entire
entire
time.
time. We were talking about like food and how they would keep food, because I honestly had not done a whole lot of research into like medieval style storing of food and things. So then we was like, well, this is like magic. Do all these taverns and inns just have like enchanted refrigerators? They have
Store in a cool, dry place.
yeah, Maytag. What would the
Good.
D&D equivalent of Maytag be?
Have your
Rune tag. Rune tag.
sure. Yes.
So-
Hog being day. So
I don't know. We'll figure something out. But yeah, I was like, yeah, cool dry place that keeps most food. So yeah,
like
they
a
were
like a cellar.
yeah, basically, right? Like a wine cellar. Just you have your cheeses. No nachos though. There are definitely no nachos in this game. Royal courts used to smell terrible because the people would just use the bathroom in the hallway. Well, I mean, yeah, that was the other thing. I was like, bathroom. You start thinking about it, you're like, oh, this never gets touched on in any of the fantasy stuff. Is like, do these taverns have restrooms? Is it like a communal restroom? Like,
Yeah, I guess you have to decide, right? Like whether you're gonna have places have like a Roman style, like there's like a public bathroom.
you just go out to the main
or
square to take a left, and there you'll find the big outhouse.
or if there's just an absolute lack of sanitation, I guess, and you just like go to like wherever you gotta go.
You
Which-
go when you gotta go. Just go take yourself a shovel and a roll of parchment, and you just go out to the woods. Well, but that's one of the things is, like with most magic parties. I mean, at least with, is it prestidigitation that allows you to clean yourself
I mean,
off?
you can do like little things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe they
Yeah,
just
I
don't
guess,
poop
yeah.
in the Forgotten Realms. Yeah, that's true. It just gets magically digested. No one has ever seen anybody poop or pee.
I like the solution on board the reclaimer that we have now for the
Yeah. Well, that was one of the
lavatory
things.
there.
It was like have that lavatory with just like a wand of prestidigitation. You just go and you just like, boom, it vibrates. It's like the sonic showers in Star Trek. It just vibrates the dirt right off of you. The one character I want Iskra to meet is Verity. Yeah, I was just talking to Bree about that. I think Wednesday, Galil, will be having our character reunion. and we will have more questions directed at the players and their experiences, since we kind of went over the basics of the lore for Forgotten Realms. I mean, that's kind of it. You have the Harpers.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So there's a few different organizations,
mhm.
right, that have been
So,
involved. We've got the main player nations that we talked about,
right, the
Um,
Lord's Alliance. There's a bunch of like smaller nations that are spread out across Faerun. Um,
you mentioned
the
the
Zentharim.
Zents.
Yeah, the Zents. They had some fun. There was a Zent broker in Phandalin, and that was the player's first experience. And she played herself off as a very, you know, helpful. I think she was served as the town's like miners would bring her the materials basically, and then she would. So it's like a pawnbroker almost, but mostly for gems and things. But then she would also deal in information, and would ask them questions, and she seemed to know a lot about things, and so the players kind of used her as a resource because she knew stuff. And then it was discovered that she was working with those red wizards that came into town, and that she had kind of alerted them to the presence of the child and all that kind of other stuff.
Aha.
So she had wound up escaping town whenever the Reds came, whenever Verity and her master Nara had burned the town. She had left. And then, like, sessions and sessions later, the characters wound up fighting her during when they were in one of the villages, like after Neverwinter, after the Empire had taken over. They had an encounter with her, and that was some really great role play, and the dice really worked in the players' favor that day.
Cool.
But Pigug had a little bit of some stakes in that because Pigug had been her favorite. And I'm not gonna go into a lot of it because we'll go over that Wednesday. But like, there was a really great interaction between her, Pigug, and Galil. We've had some really amazing moments in the campaign, and like, as much as I miss our original crew, like the send off that for each one, and we've lost a player and then gained a new player, like, it's been, for a DM it can be really challenging, and I know that you've DM'd some before, so
Yes.
you know how this can be. It was like whenever a player has to leave and you're trying to write out a better exit than just, and now they're no longer there anymore. You know what I mean? But then bringing in a new player, you have to like try and fandangle it, and I've been really fortunate with the characters that I've had and the stories that they are wanting to tell, and how well they work within, being able to like weave them in, trying to weave things out. Oof, there's been a couple challenging ones, but yeah, I'm looking forward to you getting to meet some of these old faces, and put faces and voices to the characters that our players have spoken of before, and kind of tying in some things, because and I've talked to some of them before, and we're thinking about doing some one shots because they are still alive technically out there in the game universe. So like, Verity and we've been talking about like doing some stuff with her character. Same with Pigug on occasion. Astral. It's not a kink. I guess lore dumping can be a kink. Give me that lore dump. I want all that lore.
What's that called when like it's like a attraction based off of intelligence?
Ooh.
There's a word for it. I can't think of it right now.
Sapiosexual.
Yeah, that is it. That is the word.
I think. Because it's like you're attracted to a person's intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, Parrish. I'm sure Parrish has some interesting characters. I don't know if you have seen.
I've seen a few, yes.
Yeah.
Watching other games that I'm not in.
Either with HIPAA.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
HIPAA or Oh my gosh, I was gonna say Ditto because it was a changeling, but then we changed it. It's not Ditto, it's Edrich. That's right, because it was a warlock. Edrich Blast. Yeah.
I dig it.
So Edrich and Hip are his characters within our universe right now. My problem is I'm attracted to intelligence, but if they are intelligent, they know to run the other way.
Aw.
Oh yeah, it is Ed Ribbit now because they did alter self to appear as a Salad. Those are. You know what
I love
Salads
it.
are?
They are. Are they like lizard folk, basically?
They're kind of like, yeah, but they're frogs. So they're like frog. So if D&D had a form of crazy astral, like a space aliens that worked off chaos, that would be a Slod. Like they are from the plane of chaos.
Chaotic space
Yes,
aliens
chaotic space frogs.
that are amphibians.
They're amphibians. They are creepy. Like if a person, if a creature goes to the material plane or to the chaos plane, they have to watch out for these things because they will implant themselves kind of Illithid style into a host.
Ooh. Okay.
So they plant a tadpole into a person, and then over time that tadpole grows out of the host and becomes a slot. And there are different colors determine like their specialities. So like I think there's blue, green, red. It's almost like chromatic dragons. Like their different styles kind of determine their personality and whether they're more like physical based or if they're more magic based. And but they can be controlled if you remove. They have like a crystal inside of them that control that. If you remove it through certain spells only, you can actually control the slot.
Wild.
They're bananas.
Yeah, I've never encountered that creature before.
Yeah,
I've been playing a long time. That's interesting.
There's like
Spooky.
going through. I don't remember if it's in the monster manual. I think it's in one of the off ones. No, I think it's in the monster manual. But yeah, it's got an interesting thing. But because it's tied to the chaos plane, I mean, it's probably not. It has to be very specific to a campaign. That's kind of where you wind up going there, because that's not a place that.
For real, right? The plane of chaos.
Most campaigns are like, oh, let's go to the Nine Hells or the one of the like elemental planes. You know, they don't. I don't think too many.
Yeah, if you're gonna go to another plane.
Yeah.
True.
I don't think too many go to chaos, and then there's the one of the order. There's the order, the plane of order. It's like all mech. I want to say it's not Chronos, but it's something like that. It's like a very very gearbox styled.
Oh, cool.
Plane of.
Yeah. Initially, when you say
Mechanus?
plane of order, it makes you think of
Law and Order.
the Sheogorath expansion for Oblivion.
Yeah.
Where you had Sheogorath and Jigalag fighting each other, and Jigalag was like the Order Daedra, and he had like all of like these really like angular metallic looking things all over the place.
Ari
Cool.
loves hell. Yeah, I know. She loves the rules lawyers that they all are. They're all like, you know.
D&D Hell is really cool, actually. Yeah, I agree.
It's pretty wild. I had not realized, like, early on, I just assume that the Hells and the Abyss are kind of like the same thing, just different sections. I didn't realize that they had a long-standing hatred for each other, and that the whole, like, the Blood War thing was between the Abyss or the Princes of the Abyss and then the Demon Lords, or
Oh, yeah,
Devil
you know,
Lords or whatever.
Different philosophies, right?
Yeah, no, they are, and I had no idea. That was like an interesting. They are the lawyers. Yeah, they are lawyers. yeah. Well, we're gonna have to we have the potential of delving into some of that because we have Aliquid now, whose patron was revealed to be Demogorgon, and we have the Thayans and the Red Wizards who are taking sides with the Cult of the Dragon, whom Tiamat is in the first layer of hell, so they're kind of have that on opposite sides of a different war kind of thing.
Get some Phoenix Wright Demon Attorney spin-off campaign going on.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to do some more research. I feel like the obvious choice for next plane to visit is the plane of water. Oh yeah, well in that case, I think it'd just be Iskra and Sonder venturing into the plane of water. Maybe we'll have to do that. Have you guys go there for whatever reason, where you guys.
We
can
still have
just-
to go on our little side quest to find the mysterious Valley of the River Goddess.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I can't wait to mess with that one. You'd watch
Because
it.
I mean, Iskra's like an atheist right now, right? So
Yeah.
she,
Well, that's
like,
true because she hasn't really
'cause-
seen like much in the way of divine interventions with these kind of situations, and Ravnica doesn't really have much in the way of deities.
Nope. Like the closest thing you get is planeswalkers, but they're like
They're just power.
living
They're just
people.
really big,
so
really
they're
really
just,
powerful peoples.
so yeah.
Oh wow, that's gonna be interesting.
Or I guess Orzhov syndicates like leadership, but again, also we're people at one time.
Yeah.
So
They have there's still a mortal base to these concepts versus like the deities of the thing. That's gonna be interesting.
so yeah, all
That just
that's a little
you just
interesting
you
for
just gave me
like
a whole
religion.
bunch of new like ideas I had not even like thought about. That's what's so fun. You know what, Parrish? I'm gonna say this. So far my second, no, and it's gonna probably be my first biggest, favoritist player moment in this campaign. Let's see, Airy Pug, elegantly trading in people's souls and trying to overtake each other. I just imagine them doing badly hidden word jabs at each other when they were together, and then sending out their agents the second they leave the room to backstab.
Oh, absolutely. It's like Congress in there. Like
Of course.
so
We'll
much
definitely
politics
work
or like
together.
court politics.
Yep. Oh wow, that's a good point. My favorite, I think, moment so far in this campaign, aside from the super personal one, was last week's Terran and Laz scenario.
Oh no.
That
oh, no.
was literally hands down one of the prime moments of where you're not expecting something to blow up in your face, and the moment you do, like the littlest thing, and all of a sudden the players kind of like gravitate to it, and then I'm just like, you know what?
Yes.
Let me just give this some more traction. You just kind of keep spinning the plate, waiting for it to like wobble off
It's
and
a
fly off, but it
perfect
just
little
keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. It goes faster and faster. You're like, oh no, what
Micro
have I
example
done?
of that shared storytelling for sure, Like, all right, let's run with it. So
I cannot wait to see how big of a thing this turns out to be, because I have a feeling that it's not going to be left alone, and I'm just going to go with it because, that's the joy of this game is you let it fly.
a monument to their love. Although I have to say, we're definitely like, now that one of the one mage was murdered as a prisoner of war, and the other guy is all locked up now, and he was talking about that. If he does decide to go and tell their stories, we're the bad guys of that story.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I don't
I
know
know.
if we
Everyone's like,
necessarily want that reputation.
Tell them the story of Terran and Laz, and I'm like, he's gonna be like, so there was this really happy couple that was trying to keep their love on the down low, and then these assholes just came in and killed them all as they were trying to escape. They weren't even fighting anymore. They were trying to escape and run away.
Turns out the rebellion is evil, and you shouldn't join them. So
Well,
Blue Moon being overthrown's a bad thing.
That's like the fun of this campaign. Are we the baddies? Yeah. Is like, I didn't want it to be super black and white. It kind of was at first, because obviously like the amount of violence and persecution, it seemed like persecution. I mean, the Red Wizards are taking all the magic users they can get their hands on, and either you join us or you disappear, kind of thing. And it's not really clear what happens to those that disappear. But it seems like so far that they can tell, like each head honcho and wherever their control is, they kind of run things. They're almost in their own way. Like there's definitely an allegiance to the empire as a whole, but they all have their own set different values and what they are trying to accomplish, because they're all sneaky conniving bastards. But
Part of it's a cultural clash thing, right? Like magic is strictly controlled there. And if you want to be a part of that, then you are like, you have to do it their way. Like
Right.
you go through their system.
right, and that's
and
why
it's very hierarchical.
very
Unlike,
I have
you
a
know,
whole
this
list over here of like, okay, so I know who and where people sit in that sort of thing.
with the Lord's Alliance, it's like a loose confederation, and so like that like spirit of independence, I think, probably runs a little stronger. And it's not necessarily one is right and one's wrong, but they're definitely different societies to live in.
Oh yeah.
Although I don't actually remember, although there was a really great expansion for Neverwinter Nights 2 that dealt with Fae a little bit.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And and that's the thing, is like I felt like in a lot of, they haven't been a key figure in a lot of modules lately. They're always like they're in the background kind of thing, meddling members, because there's red wizards that come up in the original thing, and that's where it kind of set my mind towards that, was you could come across some red wizards and kind of put the potential hook for a storyline there. But they haven't been a central figure in a campaign for, I think it was like one of the previous versions of D&D had like, it was a module called Dead and Thay, and it dealt specifically with them. But this time I was like, and I mean that's fair, because there's in this realm there's 100 bajillion things that could possibly go wrong and be a antagonist for a campaign.
Oh, totally right.
But I was like, this is kind of, I felt like this would be interesting in the sense that it does play in a familiar vein along the lines of the rebellion versus the empire kind of thing. But, this gives the players a chance to be able to manage their own rebellion and how they were kind of moving towards that. And while that's a different aspect that D&D doesn't really focus on, is like how you deal with large amounts of armies or send missions out for other people or whatever. That's kind of the fun that we're having with these one shots, is being able to be like, okay, let's have some of our forces go and do this, or let's go have some of our forces do that. Oh yes, I know you have an affinity with the alternative methods. Devil smirks. Fixes and swallows the time. I don't know what you're talking about, Ari. Don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, so I don't know. That's why I kind of liked this campaign so far, is that it's both familiar in concepts and information, while not being totally alien. Because I feel like, for the most part, since we're dealing with Forgotten Realms, there's still like, there's a level of familiarity for anybody who's coming in. They're going to recognize some of the names. Versus if I was going to make up a whole new campaign with a whole new world, it's like, okay, visit the wiki page where I explain who all these people are. If we name drop the Lord's Alliance, people can Google that, and it's going to have like a basic overview of, who they are or what they were or whatever.
For sure, right? Like I've definitely run a homebrew totally like campaign settings.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but I don't know, like introducing a whole bunch of new people to it all the time would be tough.
Well,
I think.
that's the thing.
Like, I had like material that I'd made that they could read if they wanted, but it's like, here's your homework now.
Congratulations.
Start playing the game.
Yeah. Well, and that was
After
my
you're
question
done.
too. Whenever I had talked to other DMs that had made their own campaign, they were all like swearing up and down about it. And I'm like, okay, well then when you start to introduce your characters, I mean, that's where I guess a really important session 0 kind of ties in. But then
for sure.
They don't have like the ability to create a backstory as easily for themselves. They kind of obviously you have to work with the DM regardless, one way or the other, to kind of like figure out where you're going with the story. But if it's like completely homebrewed, they can't be like, okay, here's my concept or here's my idea, how will this fit versus like, all right, this is kind of what I want to do. What do I need to do in order to be doing? I guess there's like certain amounts of freedoms to that.
Well, for me, I went and held it and I built the world, and then I gave them the world, and then had them build characters, and then decided what the story was going to be after.
Okay.
So, just like the Forgotten Realms is a place with lots of potential adventures.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I went like, okay, here's the place, and here's all like the things that you can like, all the places you can be from, and then I even had like different like national like extra traits. Like if you were from there, you could choose like one or two that would give you like an extra little perk. Like there was one place that was very magic focused, and it was common for even just like average Joe Schmo walking around every day, like just the sells cabbages or whatever.
Yeah.
To
not my cabbages.
Yes. To know a little bit of magic. So everybody had, I think it was, could cast a cantrip and a level 1 spell.
Okay.
And so like if you were from there, it didn't matter what class you were, you got something, you had some magic. And things like that, to kind of give some flavor to my world, that the characters could then, or that the players could then choose to help them feel unique being from a certain place, or feel a closer connection to it, even though it's a campaign I came up with totally in my head. So.
No, but that's really cool because it gives them like a little bit of helps them feel like they belong more, to a certain thing, to a certain place, and it kind of gives them an actual physical tie in with their character, where it's not just a verbal, oh yeah, I'm from such and such place. Like Galil is from a tribe of people called the Gur, but it doesn't give you the option for anything aside from that name, you know what I mean? So that way, with doing something like that, it kind of gives you a, well, because I am from here or from these people, this is a trait that I have, kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I want to work with them too. Like if they had something that they really thought was interesting or cool, there's no reason, because it's a totally off the top, or really even if it's not a totally created by me campaign, if there's something they really want to do, there's a way to fit it into the world, probably.
Yeah. No, that's true.
One thing though, I made a mistake once, and I created a like isolationist country like up in the mountains, and like all the players decided they want to be from this like isolationist country. So I was like, well, and I went ahead with an adventure outside of it by giving them like this envoy that they had to escort to go like give a diplomatic message to one of the other nations. But that was wrong, because that's not the game that the characters wanted to play. There was enough adventure in that country that I could have just focused on playing on stuff up there, Like, okay, they all want to be from this little hermit kingdom, then fine, that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on that. Rather than but for me at the time, I was like, oh, but I built this huge world, I want them to see the whole thing. That's fine. There would have been time for that.
100%. That is something that I had to continually remind myself sometimes, is like, sure, we have, especially as DMs, we have this huge world or huge thing that we want to show our players, or a huge storyline or whatever, but then you're like, okay, but this is also their story, and I don't want to, trying to balance that with, not trying to railroad them, one way or the other, and take away their choices. Blackwater, hello, welcome. Yes, we are talking about lore.
Howdy.
And actually, right now we're talking about DMing and not railroading our players. Let's see, Galil, you had said if Aaron was able to make his character, what race and class would it be? That is such a hard one, because honestly, I feel like a lot of that ties in with what the campaign is. That's kind of, I will tend to go more with like, okay, what are we going to be doing? An elf? I don't feel like I relate enough to the elven lore. Like, I leave that. I guess I have had just Kindred and Tempest be the elves for so long that I have this like hoity-toity view of how the elves feel about themselves, which is kind of, that's somewhat accurate, I guess, for the most part. But, oh man, I hate to be vanilla about it too and say that I'd be human, but there are some pretty good things you could do with a human character. They are pretty right in the middle. Oh no, that's the truth. Yeah, I know. So right now, I think I had talked to Parrish, and whenever we're doing a campaign with him, I was gonna do, oh my gosh, a Triton. I think a Triton would be fun. Again, we're going up to water characters. I just realized, but
Water characters are where
in
it's at.
The Theros like set of things, like the Tritons seem so badass to me. Like the art is
cool.
Particularly in that book for the Tritons was amazing. A moist boy. Oh my god. Well,
I still love that. One day still it'll happen. The Bronze Age setting campaign, like
100%. That's definitely when
or like,
Tritons are super fun.
classical.
Them and Water Genasi. See, we have Sonder as our Water Genasi right now, and I'm looking forward to Tritons. I think when Galil and the rest of our party winds up blowing up the world and resetting the timeline, as I have a feeling they're going to do. Because whatever. When the world restarts 200 years later, then we'll start, a Bronze Age
yes,
campaign.
when we
right
find
up.
ourselves in this, things have gone horribly and the world is rebooted.
If Iskra sat down to play D&D, what class would she play? Well, I mean, right now.
Ooh.
Oh, if Iskra. No. Oh, wait.
Iskra.
Yeah.
The character.
If Iskra the character. Ooh, that's a good one.
That's interesting and meta, so I like that question.
I love that. We've had a couple of those meta moments where, like, did you have a dream that there was a bunch of people that were sitting around a table, like, controlling? It was like, there was one time when I think some of the players got drunk, or they started to they got really drunk, I think. And they were like, did you have this weird dream? And so I think it was Sonder and Pigug. They were talking about, yeah, there were these people that were like sitting around a table and they were deciding things for us.
That's amazing.
Really yeah. So if Iskra was sitting playing,
yeah, so she's
Dungeons
there
and Dragons
spending some
world.
time at her academy,
Right.
not studying and playing D&D instead. What would she play? I think that she would enjoy playing
Houses
a
and
rogue.
Humans. A rogue? Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I can definitely see that.
I think that she would like being a rogue a lot. And then, prestige classing into something with a bit more like beefed up frontline fighting capability, but yeah.
Ooh,
I think
I could see her
she would
doing
enjoy
that.
that. So
A fourth, play Houses and Humans. I could see that. Mm-hmm. This is, oh man, I would love.
I'm gonna roll a real estate agent and Houses and Humans.
Yes, you would be the head of the local neighborhood association.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, Terry. Your lawn is too long. Clearly, we have stated in the rules that it's 2 inches. 2 inches max. I can see that.
We are the neighborhood watch.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I want to roll a Karen and be in charge of the PTA. Oh my god. Yep.
That sounds like a good minor villain.
Right? How do I roll for how good my cookies are for the bake sale? These are great ideas for like starter D&D players, when they're like, I don't know how this works. I'm like, all right, let's deal with concepts you can wrap your head around. Like bake sale cookies, you could do a performance or whatever, right? Or sleight of hand.
Describing your cookies will be a factor, as of course, like
Yes.
leaving stuff to rolls is fun, but if you can describe a great process for making a cookie, that that'll
100%.
play a part.
100%. You have to bake cookies for the DM, and he will give you inspiration based on quality. I am not above a good cookie bribe.
Yeah, so
Back whenever we were actually meeting at the apartment, we used to bring goodies and stuff, and I wouldn't necessarily give you inspiration, but my evil schemes may go a little lighter.
I could make a controversial dessert of pineapple bars. That's just something that my mom did all the
Pineapple,
time.
is it just
It doesn't
pineapples
really
that are
make them
cut
anymore.
into bar shapes, or is this like
It's like
pineapple with something else?
it's pineapple and there's like a crumbly sort of top and bottom to it. It's almost like not quite a pie, it's a bar. But it's got like a sweet crumbly exterior and a pineapple-y interior. And I grew up with them, so I love them.
Oof.
But they
Okay,
are
I'll have
unique.
to try that.
So
I'm curious, Blackwater. So you caught some of our last episode and the energy that we brought to the table. That last episode was, oh my gosh. Depending on the part that you saw, there was a lot of chaos that happened in that episode, and we were missing one of our players, which Iskra and myself, we were, Iskra was Jaegering it, basically.
a little bit.
Yeah, I just made a couple of calls in that one, but we had so much fun with a particular off-the-wall NPC scenario of two
Yes,
two
the
guards
unexpected
two of the baddies trying to get
lovers.
away, and that not happening. Oh yeah, it was definitely wild. Two baddies trying to get away, and then it turning into suddenly a player-spun tragic tale of love and secret love and romance as they were trying to escape with their lives. That was by far one of my favorite moments. And then the ending on such a dramatic note.
Oh
like,
yes, oh my gosh.
Never split the party, but in this situation, it could prove interesting. I don't know. We'll see. As half of our party is like trying to take over an airship, and then a solitary member is going to explore a forbidden dungeon underneath a school. Party splits always interesting. This is, I mean, that is not, you're not wrong. I think one of our first time splitting the party when we were little, when we were wee babs, was one of the times like half the group went out for cinnamon rolls.
This is wonderful. I
Half the
love
party
those little
left in the
things.
morning to go get baked goods. It was Pigug Verity and a couple of the other players. They left to go off and get baked goods because for whatever reason the ones in the tavern weren't good enough. And then the party that remained back behind was Galil and Kindred, and that was the day that inn was attacked by some cultists.
Oh no.
And that was whenever
it was cinnamon roll day.
That was cinnamon roll day. So the other party members were on the complete opposite side of the city getting cinnamon rolls, and they just see this like large storm cloud cover the side of the town where their inn was, and they're rushing back, and we'd already started initiative, so it was like, by that point it's game over for the other party to try and catch up in time. But that was the day that Galil, lost his pet Oreo. Poor Oreo. I know, he was sweet. See, if Aaron had gotten a cinnamon roll, might have turned out differently. It's true. So there's Oreo, which we still use for his current pet, but it was like it was like a black and white tiger, but it was like a panther, but it had the tiger stripes. So we just had a thing a couple episodes ago when half our party was on another continent and the other almost got wrecked by sentient snowflakes.
Oh no.
Listen, no spoilers, Blackwater. I mean, come on. I'm only on episode 5, but I'm gonna get there, and I can't wait for sentient snowflakes. That sounds amazing.
That sounds amazing.
What about Oreo? Speak carefully, Aaron. He was talking about this time. I didn't kill Oreo, okay? Listen, the cultist used Circle of Death. I didn't think of it as a sphere as much as I did like a circle out, and then I realized that because Oreo was on the stairs, he was still within the range, and so he died. But at the same time, Kindred left, so I feel like I don't know why I'm getting the blame when Kindred was the one who ran away. You killed Oreo with a level 6 Circle of Death. Tell it to the judge. Tell it to the jury. When we just turned level 6. Listen, I was a new DM. I blame the both of you, to be honest. Oh my gosh.
These cultists naming their spells poorly. It should be Sphere of Death.
There was. My bad. We had just turned level 5. Okay. Listen. I have nothing else to say. I rest my case, Your Honor. But yeah, they, Kindred ran away, as you do in a horror movie when it's raining and thundering outside, ran away out into an alley and wound up getting himself cornered by the cultists, which released a fun little toy that ended his life with creatures that ate spells. I don't think they ate spells. There wasn't anything that ate spells. There was just they had resistances to them. So it wasn't necessarily, and Deathbell giving Galil the kiss of death. Oh yeah. So we had Deathbell was the one of the cultist ladies that came up to him, and she was like that really like not a seductress, but she was just very like creepy in that like I'm going to get you kind of way. And so, when she was fighting Galil and he was like on the ground fighting for his life, I don't think you were doing death saving throws. I think you were just low health. I don't remember, honestly. It's been a long time. And she came up and like just in that horrible villain kind of way. I was 2 fails in. Oh, okay. Well, I guess he was 2 fails in. And there we have it. Oof.
Oh no.
We find in favor of the plaintiff, Galilian is awarded 1 artifact level item. Galil has plenty of good things going for him right now. Minus the fact that he's currently in the hands of Amaranth, the big bad villain in Silvery Moon. But there could be plus sides to this. We'll have to wait till tomorrow and find out. But yeah, that's gonna be a fun conversation to have on Wednesday. We'll jump back into that. We'll jump back into the actual, the player lore. We had just wanted to kind of get a grips for the world at large. Is there any other questions that you can think of, Iskra?
Oh, so yeah, we started talking about, we got a little derailed because we just started talking about like DMing and stuff like that in general.
Yeah.
And then answering some other fun questions, which was good. But the different organizations that are involved in all of this.
Yeah. Well, I think that,
talked about
aside
the
from
Fae,
the
the Lord's
Xanthrin,
Alliance, the Zents,
the Harpers.
The Harpers.
The Harpers are kind of like the Zents, but they're like on the opposite of the spectrum. So they value lore, and they value music and information and history. So it's more like history and music are their things, but they he's magical. Oh no, thanks. They also have like a secret society, but they're not so secret. So Zens are kind of more undergroundy about things. Harpers are kind of like, hey, we have a music shop, and also come and tell us your secrets, and we send messages. Like they, according to the lore that I had read initially, it was almost a fad for a while to be considered like an agent of the harbors. Like the
Like
people and
stonemasons,
they're
like they say they're a secret society, but
yes,
they're everywhere.
exactly. And so the people would have pins that had like the little harp symbol on them, just so that they would be like, oh, they're a member of the Harpers. But you know, the Harpers eventually kind of were like, yeah, no, we don't know these people. They're they're idiots. And so they kind of disassembled and then wound up coming back together again. So the Harpers are kind of out there still. They are usually found around like musical events. There's been a couple of times where the parties had like some interactions with them. But they are definitely on the polar opposite of the Zens kind of thing.
Then we have the Living Order, what Alison and Iskra hung out with for a while.
Elliot is laughing because my character just flat out stopped in the video game tonight as soon as I heard Oreo from you. I don't know what you're talking about.
That moment too, when you almost accidentally called Finn Oreo, when it was looking like he was in a dangerous situation.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. So,
I guess
on our last session, also there was a moment where Galil's current pet Finn was needing to move from one place to another, but he started to call it Oreo, and he just like stopped and had the saddest. Oh my god, I got so sad.
It was when we were fighting the attendants in the cafeteria.
Yeah, he just got so sad in that moment, and I was like, I'm sorry. he needed a moment. But I don't know. I think it was just because you saw the mini, you know, and it was Oreo as the mini. So I think that's part of the reason why it like brought it up to his head, because you've never done that before, and you've had Finn for a little while now. So I think it was just seeing the little reminder. We'll find you a new mini for Finn. I'm sure I can find a hunting griffin somewhere out there. But so we have those. We have the Knights of the Living Order, which we'll be dealing more with them probably over the next couple of months, since we have brought in 2 of those characters.
Yes, that is very cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say Montel, but that was the old talk show.
Yes.
Martell is what I meant to say. Martell and
Montel Williams.
Montel Williams. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's see how long Finn sticks around. This is also true. Damn, that's cold perished. Martell and Sybil. Right? Yes. Yeah, Sybil. I was thinking of Am's other character, but Sybil is this one. And Sybil, and since they're part of the Knights Order, we'll probably have some one-shots revolving them and their adventures as part of this rebellion kind of thing. But the Knights Order is that druidic knight, kind of the Green Knight kind of styled order, where they are kind of attuned with nature in a magical sense, but it's different than most magic schools. So that's been not as cold as Oreo. Wow. Parrish is bringing... Parrish? I don't know.
Damn.
Listen, not as cold as Oreo. Oreo, to be fair, Oreo was a spirit creature of the Fae. And so when Oreo passed, they had a funeral, and Oreo's spirit was able to return to the Feywild. That was part of the ritual that had been done. There was an event. Iskra, are you familiar with the term the Spell Plague?
This sounds familiar, but I don't know much about it. This has been dropped
a couple of times because it has to do with like Netheril, the Mage City, or Mage City is Mage Nation. The Spell Plague took place like almost 100 years before our current events, and basically the goddess of magic was murdered by the god of murder, and Shar, a goddess of darkness,
as one does.
And for several years, like there was like 10 years of just complete chaos. Like spells were being wonky, planes were kind of being torn and shifted apart. the spell plague ended in so spell plague started in 1385 and the spell plague ended in 1410. So it was a brief time where magic was just all sorts of bananas, and it was during that spell plague that Oreo and a bunch of other magic creatures that kind of got torn from the Fae, and things made of magic stopped working. So that's where technically Oreo was part of like some of the creatures that got torn to the material plane, and then were kind of sold because Galil had found. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna go into.
That's a cool
personal.
origin story.
Yeah, we'll go into like the origins of Oreo on Wednesday, but yeah, so it's got a little tie-in with that. And during that spell plague, where magic stopped working, Netheril as a mage nation kind of collapsed from the sky, and there's some ties with kindred in there that have recently come up, and some other things. All the archmages lost their magic. Rough times. Yeah, it was rough times, and you have to actually wash dishes and wash yourself, take a shower instead of prestidigitate things. But
though that raises some interesting municipal questions, right? Like if you lived in a society that relied on magic to do daily things like that and deal with like sanitation, then what do you do when it goes crazy, when you have to be worried that if you try to use a spell that you could like end up like erasing your entire like lower torso rather than
it just turns you inside out. You turn the cat into a goldfish somehow, or vice versa. The great sewage backup of 1425.
That one's not in the history books, but it should
they don't
be.
talk about. Yeah, you don't talk about it. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other major groups. I don't think that so far that's been the ones that have come in contact with the.
There's the city of Atet and that rebellion itself, right?
Okay.
So.
Yes. So, well, and that kind of ties in with the characters to a certain degree. This has been so lovely. Jump in. I'll see if I can make it tomorrow night. Oh, okay. You go and have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for dropping
Blackwater. Yeah, the city of Atet was.
That's Aliquin's signature move, but I had
right?
to do it.
No. The city of Atet was called by another name, and it was one of the cities of Netheril. So they had the party wound up finding it through a crazy series of events in the middle of the desert, and through another series of crazy events, wound up raising the city once again. I love the spell plague setting. I found that so yeah, it is a really interesting setting, because if you go by, because I think spell plague was 3. I looked it up just earlier. I think spell plague was 3.5 or right at the beginning of 4. I think it ended 3.5 and started 4, because I looked it up and I didn't know that. That's
why I don't know it, because that's when I switched to Pathfinder.
So. Let me see. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to find it now. But yes. Oh, nope. Oh, wait, hold on. I found it. Where I had seen the stuff anyway. Let's see. The spell plague was 1385. So yeah, 3rd edition begins So yeah, roughly the end of 3E was just before the spell plague. So spell plague looks like it started in 1385. So maybe that was right when it switched to 4E, because in 1479 was the main year covered by 4E. Forgotten Realms play. So yeah, so it must have been somewhere between those two that happened. the whole spell plague thing. And so the city was one of the lost. There was like 5 cities, 5 large floating cities, and Atet was the name of one of the key reasons that took off. Was there was a I love this transition to 4th, yeah. Like what happens when your DM gets tired of the party's casters getting too OP and crazy. Spell plague. Oh yeah, they basically shook the bag for you. The Rashaman.
Rashman, are they like barbarians?
I think
Is that
so.
is that a group?
We'll have to get Ari on here and just have her explain.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah, because it was like there was a lot of things that they changed with 4, I guess, and that's why they were kind of like, oh, well, we have a spell plague to reset magic and reset the game, and kind of
They did change a lot of stuff.
That kind of scenario. And then for 5e, basically was whenever the spell plague ended.
That's so
Spirits,
cool.
shamans, witches, barbarians. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about that. That like early like proto tribes of Europe type of people, hella cool. Or even like Mongolian steppes, maybe. Like
Yeah.
that's rocking.
They rolled it back. So, I forgot where. Oh yeah, the city of Atet. So yeah, that had a lot to do actually with the characters and their story, and we'll probably cover that
Cool.
on Wednesday when we do more personal character dives, because that was right at the transition where we had some of the players leave and whenever you guys came in, because that had just happened whenever you guys got
Which
back.
I guess the last group that I could think of then is the Knights of Silvermoon.
That's Silvermoon.
So it's
So,
appropriate,
yeah,
right, to talk about them here.
Yeah. So Knights of Silvermoon were, because we started out as like the gamer group, and then it
Yes.
kind of just vanished. And so I kind of liked the idea of knights, and that's why I had thrown it into the prophecy as well. Is like the knights will rise. And so later on down the line, when we were thinking about doing the whole like one-shot group where it was kind of tied into a shared universe, but we didn't want to have to, we wanted to be able to use where players could choose and go between different DMs without having to be tied to one singular story, but where the one-shot still kind of had a overarching plot.
Something to pull them all together.
Kind
yes.
of wanted something to pull them all together, whereas they still had, each one was its own storyline. And so me and my friend Miguel had started talking about doing something along those lines, and then putting it all together, we kind of made up the Knights of Silvermoon again, where they were like the Justice League of a multi-dimensional faction that would be able to travel to different planes, times, and multiverses without with a little bit of explanation as to why they were able to do that without having to be like super lore heavy. And so each agent, because I also took some inspiration from a game called The Division, where it was like normal people that are kind of James Bond styled, super trained, but they're kind of undercover living their life until they get activated. And that's where the whole rune on the wrist comes into play,
cool.
where it's like that lights up once they're about to be called to a mission, so they know to be prepared for that. So we had some wacky character. I had some wacky characters that would act as like middlemen between those that are giving the orders down the line, and they were like spanned multiple different pantheons and deities that were all part of this collective Knights of Silvermoon, watching their own respective realms and being like, okay, we need help because agents of chaos are here, or agents of chaos are there. And there was like a whole bunch of different names that we had for the bad guys that were all still kind of like the same group, but would go by different names. And so then we had all of these agents that way, like, oh, this one lives in the Forgotten Realms, but then this one is in Ravnica. And I even had plans, and still can do it, like people on Earth themselves, too, or where like some of the characters would have to travel to our Earth, where there is no quote unquote magic, but they have this power to kind of help with events, or whatever, just kind of going back and forth in these things.
Yeah, that's very groovy.
where we could have a lot of fun with creating one-shot ideas that were just like, oh, if I found this one-shot I like, I can play it without having to worry about it not fitting in with my campaign.
It's definitely a great little flavor piece that allows, you to do basically anything and then pull it in later if you want. So,
and and it'd be easy to get, and I'm still hoping to do this, is get a bunch of DMs together so you have different play styles and different things, but everyone's kind of united over an umbrella of like, this is kind of what our ultimate storyline is. Not that we have per se a storyline, but we have a common enemy, we have a common goal, and all the one shots kind of have something that kind of ties in. So maybe a player will discover a little bit about the story from one place or another. It also allows to make it matter or borrow some characters then, and then someone can be like, oh, it's that guy from exactly. It's exactly
definitely
what we did.
It's cool. And yeah, like even the knights themselves and like all that, like battling the agents of chaos, right?
Chaos.
Like wherever, like that's a really cool concept in of itself. So like your other campaigns and everything can have a lot going on, but then there's this other,
and it has
top level thing going on constantly.
Exactly. And because chaos can be anything.
Wonderful.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a super villain, but it can be like, hey, we're noticing that there's a high concentration of. It kind of reminded me of like the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego thing, where you're the agents of Vile versus the good guys, and they're kind of traveling all over the place, and you just barely miss somebody, but you catch a clue as to where someone else might be, and they all can kind of share resources and information to kind of tie things together and then go from there.
In a very nerdy sort of way, it's like an embodiment of like, they're like fighting entropy, right? Like
Yep. Exactly.
Gotta prevent the heat death of the universe by keeping things ordered.
Exactly. Well, I hadn't expected to go this long. But
yeah, it ended up being like an entire session.
But we've been going for a minute.
My laptop just gave me the "you need to plug me in right now or I'm gonna die" notification.
Well, that's fine.
Maybe this works out, and we ended talking about the knights. We started talking about the knights.
And that's the thing, is
circular.
Like the knights are still gonna have an interesting role to play, because Iskra is part of the knights currently, and this is currently her mission, and
I love it.
There's some secrets that are going on with that too, so got plenty of good threads to pull along the way. So thank you everybody for thanks guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys.
It was fun talking to y'all.
We'll see you guys tomorrow for the next episode, for episode 99 of Game of Santos.
There we go.
And then hopefully on Wednesday for our reunion episode, where we bring in and talk more about the actual characters themselves, and hopefully try and keep it as spoiler free as possible for everybody.
Yes.
We'll see.
Focus
we'll
on
see.
a background without revealing everyone's backgrounds.
Right? Well, this gives us time to figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
All right, guys. You have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, y'all.